Hi everybody. Before we start the story, please click the like button and subscribe to our channel. Also, tell us in the comments where you are watching from and what time it is. If you do that, YouTube will keep showing you more stories like this one. Okay, let's start now. The thermometer outside the Fairbanks cabin read -43 degrees when Marcus Chen watched the clock on his phone jump from 11:58 p.m. to 11:57 p.m. on December 31st, 2022. He blinked, certain he'd misread it, but then 11:56 appeared. The countdown was running backwards. His wife, Sarah, stood by the window, champagne glass frozen halfway to her lips. Marcus, the fireworks across the river, they're going back into the launchers. He joined her at the frost-covered glass. Across the Chena River, the brilliant cascades of light were indeed reversing, flowing upward like footage played in rewind. But this wasn't footage. The reflection on the ice, the smoke trails in the -40 air, everything moved with impossible fluidity backward through time. Check your phone, he said, his breath fogging despite the cabin's heater running full blast. Sarah pulled out her device. Her face went pale in the candlelight they'd lit for ambiance. 11:55. Marcus, what the fuck is happening? They'd rented this remote cabin specifically to escape Anchorage's crowds, to spend New Year's Eve in pristine wilderness 40 miles from the nearest neighbor. Now that isolation felt like a noose tightening. The radio suddenly crackled to life strange, since they hadn't turned it on. A voice emerged through static, ceasing in 17 minutes. All residents remain indoors. Time anomaly detected across interior Alaska. Do not attempt to... The message cut off, then began again from the start, word for word identical. Marcus checked his phone. 11:54. No signal. Not unusual out here, but they'd had 2 bars when they arrived at sunset. Sarah moved to the door, but Marcus grabbed her arm. Wait, look at the window. The frost patterns were growing. Not slowly, rapidly. Fractal designs spreading across the glass like living things, intricate branches reaching toward the center, and they were forming patterns. Numbers, 11:53, 11:52. The frost was counting down with them. We're still moving backward, Sarah whispered, checking her phone compulsively. 11:51. How is this possible? Marcus had studied physics at UAF before becoming an engineer for the oil fields. Time didn't work like this. Entropy didn't reverse, yet he could feel it, a wrongness in his chest, like his heartbeat was fighting against an invisible current. The cabin groaned. Old logs settling, he told himself. But the sound was rhythmic, deliberate. I'm going to check outside, he said, reaching for his parka. Are you insane? It's -43, -45 now. He pointed at the thermometer. It's getting colder as we go backward. Don't you see? We're rewinding into the winter solstice, the coldest part of the year. Sarah's eyes widened. If we keep going back, we need to see how far this extends. He suited up in layers. Thermal underwear, fleece, down parka, beaver fur hat, expedition gloves. The ritual of dressing took 4 minutes by his phone's backward counting clock, 11:47 when he opened the door. The cold hit him like a physical blow. Not just cold, wrong cold. The air felt thick, resistant, as if he was pushing through something semi-solid. His headlamp beam looked strange, the light particles moving sluggishly through the darkness. The aurora borealis overhead was the worst part. The northern lights danced and swirled, but in reverse. Streamers of green and purple withdrew into themselves, patterns forming and unforming, and there were shapes in them, vast, geometric structures that his eyes couldn't quite focus on. They hurt to look at, like trying to perceive a fourth spatial dimension. His breath crystallized instantly, ice particles hanging in the air instead of dispersing. They floated around his head like a fog, accumulating rather than disappearing. Across the river, he could see other cabins, their windows glowing, but the lights flickered in synchronized patterns, all of them. He tried to count the flashes, but his brain struggled. Short, short, long, short, repeated, again and again. Behind him, Sarah screamed. Marcus spun and crashed back through the door. Sarah stood frozen in the center of the room, pointing at the mirror above the fireplace. Their reflections were moving independently, not drastically, just slightly delayed. When Sarah raised her hand, her reflection followed a half-second later. When Marcus stepped forward, his reflection hesitated before matching the movement. "It's the time slip," he said, though he had no idea if that was true. "Light is traveling slower, so reflections are—" "Stop trying to explain it," Sarah's voice cracked. "Look at your reflection's eyes." He looked. His reflection stared back with eyes that were completely black. Pupils dilated so wide they consumed the iris, or maybe something else entirely. When he blinked, his reflection didn't. 11:43. The radio crackled again. Same message, but this time running backward. Phonemes reversed into alien syllables that still somehow conveyed meaning directly into his brain. Yurtimiza emit tupetatan odi. Axala ruoretini sorka decetid yilamon emit. Srudni niame arestenedizar yela. Setunum nit neves. Nisiech. "We need to leave," Sarah said. "Get in the truck and drive." "Drive where? What if this is everywhere? What if we drive right into whatever's causing?" The cabin lights went out, not gradually. Instantly, like reality had been edited. The darkness was absolute, except for their phone screens and the aurora glow seeping through windows. But that glow was changing color, shifting from green to a deep, bruised purple that made Marcus's eyes water. 11:41. "Marcus," Sarah's voice was small. "What happens at 11? What happens if we reach the beginning of the hour? I don't know. And if we keep going backward past that?" He didn't answer because he'd been thinking the same thing. If time was reversing, what happened when they reached yesterday? Last week? Would they cease to exist at some point in the past when they weren't in this cabin? Footsteps on the roof. Heavy ones, crunching through the snow accumulation. Back and forth, methodical. But no one could be up there. The roof was too steep, and the cold would kill an exposed person in minutes. Sarah grabbed a flashlight, aimed it at the ceiling. The beam illuminated frost patterns that had spread across the wooden beams. More numbers. 11:40. The footsteps stopped. For 5 seconds, silence. Then something began scratching. Claws or fingers, scraping through ice and wood. The sound came from multiple points, simultaneously above them, beside them, below them, through the floor. "The crawl space," Marcus said. "Something's in the crawl space." Their cabin was built on pylons, raised above the permafrost. The gap underneath was 3 feet high, enough room for animals to shelter or for something else to crawl. The scratching intensified, rhythmic, purposeful. It was spelling something in the wood. Marcus could hear it. 3 scratches, pause. 2 scratches, pause. 1 scratch, over and over, counting down. 11:38. Sarah's phone started ringing. The screen showed incoming call. Sarah Chen. She was receiving a call from herself. "Don't answer it," Marcus said. But Sarah was already lifting the phone to her ear with shaking hands. "Hello?" Her voice barely audible. From the speaker, loud enough for Marcus to hear, Sarah's voice, screaming, just screaming, continuous and raw, interspersed with wet, choking sounds, then other voices underneath, many voices, all overlapping, speaking in reverse speech that made his teeth ache. Sarah dropped the phone. It clattered on the floor, the screaming continuing. Marcus stomped on it, cracking the screen. The sound didn't stop. It emanated from the walls now, from the ceiling, from the crawl space. Sarah's scream multiplied and echoed as if dozens of versions of her were trapped in the cabin's structure. 11:36. "We're leaving." Marcus grabbed their emergency pack. "Now, we'll take our chances outside." He threw open the door and stopped. The forest had changed. The spruce trees surrounding their cabin were moving, swaying without wind, their branches reaching toward the structure like grasping fingers. But worse, between the trees stood figures, human-shaped, perfectly still, wearing clothes from different eras. He could make out parkas from the 1950s, fur coats from earlier, and some dressed in items he couldn't identify. Native patterns mixed with modern gear, mixed with things that looked wrong, fabrics that shouldn't exist, cuts that defied geometry. All of them faced the cabin. All of them had the same black eyes he'd seen in his reflection. "They're us," Sarah whispered. "Marcus, those are us. Different versions, different times." She was right. Among the figures, he could see his own face repeated younger, older, with different facial hair, different scars, and Sarah, multiple Sarahs, all frozen and staring. 11:34. The figures stepped forward in unison. One step, perfectly synchronized, boots crunching in snow that was falling upward now, flakes rising from the ground into the purple-black sky. Marcus slammed the door. "Barricade it. Everything heavy. Now." They shoved the couch against the door, piled the table and chairs. Sarah was crying, mascara running black down her cheeks, but her hands worked mechanically, efficiently. The scratching beneath them grew frantic. Wood splintered. A hand burst through the floor between them, pale, frostbitten, fingers bent at wrong angles. It groped blindly before withdrawing, leaving a hole that exhaled cold air that burned their exposed skin. More hands, coming through walls, floor, ceiling. Some fresh, some rotted, some just bones held together by frozen tendon, all reaching, grasping, trying to pull themselves through. 11:31. Marcus's engineering mind raced. The aurora. It's always been connected to magnetic fields, solar radiation. What if something's affecting the magnetosphere? Time is relative. Gravity affects it. And if the magnetic field is, I don't care why. Sarah shrieked. How do we stop it? Through the holes in the floor, he could see into the crawl space. His headlamp beam caught movement bodies down there, crawling over each other, packed like sardines, all wearing the same clothes he and Sarah wore, all with those empty black eyes. The radio spoke again, forward this time, a different voice. New Year's Eve, 1974. The Fairbanks anomaly first documented. 18 residents affected, all found frozen in time at 11 p.m. exactly, aged backward to infancy, then beyond. Recommend demolition of Site 7 before next occurrence. 11:29. Site 7. Marcus breathed. This cabin. We're in the same fucking place it happened before. Sarah pointed at the mirror. Their reflections had multiplied. Dozens of themselves, standing behind their shoulder, all at slightly different angles, all delayed by different intervals. Some moved 5 seconds behind, some 10, some seemed to move ahead, and they were all converging, stepping closer in the reflection space, reaching toward the glass boundary. A hand pushed through the mirror's surface. Fingers that looked exactly like Sarah's, but cold, crystalline, made of ice rather than flesh. It grabbed the frame and pulled. A shoulder emerged, then a head, Sarah's head, mouth open in a silent scream, eyes black voids. The ice Sarah stepped fully into the room. Behind her, ice Marcus emerged, then more, pouring out of the mirror like water, but remaining solid, definite. Each one slightly different, different ages, different expressions of frozen terror. The first ice Sarah walked toward real Sarah with jerky movements, leaving wet footprints that froze instantly. 11:26. Real Sarah backed against the wall, nowhere left to go. The ice version reached out, touched her cheek with fingers that left white frostbite instantly. Where they made contact, real Sarah's skin began to crystallize, spreading like the patterns on the window. Marcus grabbed the fireplace poker and swung. It passed through ice Sarah's head, shattering it. But the body remained standing, and the head reformed from vapor, ice crystals assembling from the air. You can't fight us, the ice Sarah said, voice like breaking glaciers. We're every moment you've existed in this location, every second you've breathed this air. We're accumulated time made manifest. More figures poured from the mirror. Not just them, others, previous occupants of this land, Athabascan hunters from centuries past, gold rush prospectors, homesteaders, all crystalline, all wrong, all reaching. 11:24. The temperature inside the cabin plummeted. Marcus could see his breath forming elaborate frost patterns. Their sweat froze in their hair. Sarah's tears became ice tracks on her cheeks. The cold, Marcus realized. We're moving backward into the polar night. The winter solstice was 3 weeks ago. We're approaching it in reverse. It was colder then. So what? We freeze to death? No. We exist in multiple times simultaneously. We become like them. He pointed at the ice figures. They weren't attacking anymore, just standing, surrounding the couple, waiting. Dozens of time echoes, all occupying the same space, all real and unreal simultaneously. 11:22. Sarah's fingers turned transparent. She held them up to the aurora light coming through the window, and Marcus could see through them not just the bones, but through the bones, through space itself. She was becoming permeable to time. His own hands showed the same effect. He could feel himself spreading thin across moments, experiencing past and future simultaneously. He was 7 years old, playing in snow in Beijing. He was 34, standing in this cabin. He was 58, dying in a hospital bed in Anchorage. He was all of these, none of these. 11:20. The cabin walls became transparent. Through them, he saw the forest in multiple eras. Primeval spruce from 10,000 years ago. Cleared land from a future that hadn't happened. A burning structure, a pristine meadow, all layered, all true. The figures weren't separate entities, he understood now. They were moments. This location was saturated with frozen time, each second preserved in the permafrost beneath, in the air molecules, in the quantum state of every atom. New Year's Eve created a resonance, midnight a focal point, and this place, Site 7, was a thin spot where time leaked through. 11:18. Sarah grabbed his hand. Her touch felt distant, theoretical. "I love you," she said. But her voice came from multiple timelines the day they met. Their wedding, fights they'd had, fights they would have. "I love you," he replied, meaning it across all moments simultaneously. The ice figures moved closer, but they weren't attacking. They were welcoming, showing the couple their future past, the state they would had will become. Time wasn't moving backward anymore, it was collapsing entirely, all moments existing at once. 11:16. Marcus could see the pattern now. Every 50 years, this location experienced the collapse. Something about the magnetic field, the aurora, the depth of winter darkness, the exact angle of Earth's axis. It created a loop, a moment that folded back on itself eternally. The scratching beneath the floor resolved into words. "Join us. It doesn't hurt after the first eternity." Sarah's body flickered, solid, then transparent, then ice, then flesh, cycling through states. Marcus felt his own consciousness fragmenting, spreading across the timeline like mist. 11:14. Through the transparent walls, he saw the truck outside. In one timeline, they escaped, drove through the reverse time until their bodies crystallized at the wheel. In another, they stayed in the cabin and joined the frozen choir beneath the floorboards. In another, they never came here at all. But they were in this timeline, this moment, this version. The aurora overhead was so bright now, it illuminated the interior through the roof. Purple-green light that showed the cabin for what it really was. A trap, a collection point, a place where time pooled and stagnated like water with nowhere to drain. 11:12. Sarah's face cycled through ages. Child, teenager, young adult, middle-aged, elderly, corpse, child again. Marcus watched his own hand do the same, flesh melting through decades in seconds. "Is this hell?" Sarah asked. "No," said one of the ice figures with Marcus's voice. "This is just Alaska. We're too far north. The magnetosphere is thin here. Time is thinner too." 11:10. The mirror shattered. All of them, every version, every echo rushed inward simultaneously. The cabin filled with bodies that passed through each other, occupying identical space, mouths open in unison. They sang the countdown. 11, 10, 9. But their voices were wrong, coming from throats that existed in different years, different decades, harmonizing across time. Marcus felt his mind splitting. Part of him was still rational, engineering trained, trying to understand. But most of him was fragmenting into every moment he'd ever existed, experiencing his entire life simultaneously. Birth, childhood, This instant, death, all of it at once. 8, 7, 6. The cabin began to rotate, not physically, temporally, spinning through its own history. He saw it being built in 1968, saw it burning in a future he wouldn't live to see, saw the land before humans, when only caribou walked here. 5, 4, 3. Sarah's hand in his was both everything and nothing, solid and vapor, hot and frozen, present and absent. 2, 1, 0. Reality inverted. Midnight on New Year's Eve, struck in reverse. Instead of moving forward into January 1st, they plunged backward into December 31st. But they kept going. Days rewound. Weeks. Months. The solstice approached in reverse, and at the exact moment of the solstice, the longest night, the darkest point time stopped entirely. Marcus existed in that frozen instant forever. Not moving, not thinking, just being. A crystal of consciousness preserved in temporal amber, aware of everything, experiencing nothing, trapped in the perfect dark of midwinter midnight. Around him, the ice figures stood silent, waiting for the next New Year's Eve, the next couple seeking isolation, the next opportunity to welcome new moments into their eternal collection. The cabin stands empty 11 months of the year. The 12th month, it doesn't exist in any time at all, and every 50 years, it becomes very crowded indeed. The expedition to the Anaktuvuk Pass research station was supposed to be routine: environmental monitoring during the coldest part of winter, data collection on permafrost degradation. When Dr. Time, Yuki Tanaka's team of 4, arrived on December 30th, 2021, the temperature was a balmy -38 degrees Fahrenheit. By 10:47 p.m. on New Year's Eve, it had dropped to -63. Yuki checked the weather station readout for the 7th time in 5 minutes, certain it was malfunctioning. This is impossible. The forecast predicted -45 maximum. Her colleague, Dr. Robert Carlson, pressed his face against the triple-paned window. Even through 3 layers of insulated glass, frost formed from his breath. The barometric pressure is climbing too. Look, 31.2 inches. That's almost record high. The third team member, graduate student Melissa Huang, hunched over her laptop. Guys, the seismographs are going crazy. Ground vibrations, but nothing like an earthquake. They're rhythmic. Show me, Yuki said. The screen displayed sine waves, but they were too regular, too perfect. The peaks and troughs occurred at exactly 3.2-second intervals. Natural seismic activity didn't work that way. It's like something's breathing, Melissa whispered. The fourth member, technician James Kowalski, stood at the communications array. Radio's dead. Satellites dead. Even the emergency beacon, nothing. We're cut off. The research station was a modular structure on steel pylons, designed to withstand Arctic conditions. 20 miles from the nearest settlement, it housed instruments worth millions and could sustain a team for months if necessary. Yuki had always found it cozy, even in deep winter. Now it felt like a coffin. 10:53 p.m. The lights flickered. Backup generators kicked in automatically, but the quality of light changed, became slightly blue-tinted, colder. We should abort, Robert said. Pack up and head back to Fairbanks. In -63? Yuki shook her head. The truck won't even start. We're safer here than trying to... The seismograph alarm shrieked. All of them jumped. Melissa silenced it, staring at the screen. Whatever's causing those vibrations, it's moving. Coming from the north, heading directly toward the station. How fast? James asked. 7 miles per hour. It'll be here in... She checked her watch. 17 minutes. Right around midnight. The temperature dropped again. -65. Yuki's scientific training screamed that this violated thermodynamics. Temperature didn't plummet this rapidly without cause. A massive cold front, katabatic winds, something. But the anemometer showed dead calm. 0 wind. The air outside was perfectly still. 10:58 p.m. Robert pointed at the window. The ground. Look at the ground. The snow-covered tundra visible in their floodlights was changing color. white-blue deepening to violet-black, as if the cold itself had a color, and that color was spreading like a stain, and it was spreading toward them. Yuki grabbed binoculars, trained them north. At first, nothing but darkness and the aurora's faint glow. Then she saw it, a line across the tundra, perfectly straight, kilometers long, moving south at walking pace. Where it passed, everything changed. The snow, the air, the light itself all transformed to that deep violet black, and in that darkness, things moved. "Seal the station," she ordered. "Full environmental lockdown. Now." They rushed through protocols, closing vent shutters, pressurizing the interior, activating the emergency heating system. The station was designed for worst-case scenarios, able to maintain 20 degrees Celsius inside, even in extreme cold. But the heaters struggled. Yuki watched the thermostat drop, despite the generators running full power. 18 degrees, 16, 14, 11:04 p.m. The vibrations intensified. Now they could feel them, physically rhythmic pulses coming up through the floor, through the walls. The entire station shook gently, regularly, like a heartbeat. Melissa pulled up the external camera feeds. 4 cameras mounted on the roof, giving 360-degree coverage. The northern feed showed the approaching line, clearer now. It wasn't just darkness, it was a wall. A vertical curtain of absolute black, rising from the ground to impossible heights, touching the aurora overhead. The northern lights themselves bent and warped where they contacted the wall, colors bleeding into that hungry violet black. "That's not weather," James said. "That's not anything natural." 11:09 p.m. Robert checked the thermometer again. -71 outside. The door seals will fail at -80. The insulation is only rated to -75. "Then we have 8 degrees before we're exposed," Yuki said, her voice steady despite the fear. "Prep the survival shelter. If the main structure compromises, we go to the core module." The survival shelter was a small, heavily insulated pod in the center of the station, a last resort for situations exactly like this. It could sustain 4 people for 72 hours on battery power alone. 11:14 p.m. The wall was close enough now that they could see details. Not smooth roiling, churning, like storm clouds compressed into a vertical surface. And there were shapes inside it, human-sized, moving independently of the wall's flow. Yuki's hands shook as she activated the emergency radio beacon one more time. Still nothing. Whatever the wall was, it absorbed or blocked all electromagnetic radiation. The lights flickered again. This time, when they stabilized, they were dimmer. The backup generators strained audibly, their diesel engines chugging harder. -76 outside. "Heaters are losing," Robert reported. "Interior temperature, 13 degrees and dropping. We need to move to the shelter." But Yuki couldn't stop staring at the monitors. The wall was 50 meters away now, and the shapes inside had resolved into figures. People. Dozens of them, walking inside the darkness, pressed against the surface like hands against a membrane. They all faced the station. 11:19 p.m. Melissa grabbed Yuki's arm. "Those people I recognize, one. Dr. Chen, from the Arctic Research Center. She died last year. Hypothermia during a supply run." Yuki looked closer. Melissa was right. Among the figures was Dr. Chen, still wearing her expedition parka, face pressed against the dark membrane, mouth moving in silent words. "This is mass hallucination," Robert said, backing away from the window. "Carbon monoxide, hypoxia, something in the air. The sensors would detect that," James interrupted. 11:24 p.m. The wall reached the station perimeter. "Contact." The world inverted. Sound ceased. Not muffled, absent. Yuki could see her teammates shouting, but heard nothing. The vibrations stopped. The lights went out completely, replaced by a sourceless violet glow that came from everywhere and nowhere, and the cold came in, not through doors or windows, through reality itself. The walls offered no protection. Temperature inside the station plummeted to match the exterior. -78, -80, -85. Frost spread across every surface instantly. Yuki's exposed skin burned with cold, then went numb. Her breath froze in her lungs, making each inhalation painful, each exhalation incomplete. Robert collapsed, clutching his chest. Without sound, his scream was just an open mouth, tendons standing out in his neck. The figures from the wall were inside the station now. They walked through the walls as if physical barriers didn't exist. Dr. Chen approached first, her mouth still moving. Yuki could read her lips. "Join us. The celebration is eternal." 11:28 p.m. Yuki dragged Robert toward the survival shelter, Melissa and James helping. But the door wouldn't open. The electronic lock had frozen solid, the mechanism seized. James pulled an emergency axe from the wall mount and swung at the door. The steel rang with each impact, but barely dented. His movement slowed with each swing as the cold sapped his strength. More figures poured through the walls. Men and women in various states of decay, all moving with jerky, frozen limbs. Some wore clothing from the 1920s, fur parkas and wool. Others wore modern gear. All had skin the color of deep bruises, lips blue-black, eyes clouded with ice. -92. Yuki's fingers had lost all feeling. Her face felt tight, her joints grinding. She could feel ice crystals forming in her nasal passages, her throat. Each breath was knives. Melissa fell. She tried to get up, but her muscles wouldn't respond. Hypothermia's final stage, the body shutting down non-essential functions, pooling warmth around the core. 11:33 p.m. The figures surrounded them. "Doctor!" Chen knelt beside Yuki, her frozen face inches away. Without sound, her words appeared directly in Yuki's mind. "Every New Year's Eve, the cold remembers. This land was ice for eons. We're just the newest addition to the permafrost's memory." Yuki wanted to respond, to question, but her jaw had frozen shut. She could only watch as the other figures knelt by her teammates, touching them with frozen fingers. Where they touched, flesh crystallized, not freezing, transforming. Skin became ice, but living ice, still moving, still aware. Yuki watched in horror as Robert's arm turned transparent, blue-white, veins visible as dark lines through the crystal structure. His eyes remained mobile, trapped in a face that was becoming part of the cold itself. 11:38 p.m. James managed one more swing with the axe before his arms turned to ice mid-motion, freezing in place. He became a statue, still holding the axe aloft, terror etched in crystalline features. Melissa screamed without sound as her legs merged with the floor, ice spreading from the frozen metal up through her boots, through flesh, through bone. She became part of the station itself, rooted in place. Yuki felt the change starting in her own body. Her feet first, the flesh going rigid, sensation transforming from cold to something else. Awareness spreading rather than diminishing. She could feel the metal floor through her boots, then through her skin. Then she was the metal, experiencing its molecular structure, its temperature, its place in the world. The transformation was awareness without escape. 11:43 p.m. Dr. Chen's voice in her mind. "We don't die. We become. Every atom of cold, every ice crystal, every frozen moment, we're part of it now. And we remember." Yuki's consciousness expanded. She felt the permafrost beneath the station kilometers deep, frozen for millennia. And in that ice were others. Thousands of others. Ancient humans who died in the cold. Animals, even plants, all preserved, all still aware in some distant way, experiencing existence as eternal, frozen consciousness. The wall wasn't something separate. It was them, all of them, the accumulated awareness of every frozen thing in Alaska, manifesting once per year when the cold reached its peak and the barrier between frozen death and frozen life grew thin. 11:47 p.m. Her arms crystallized. She watched the process with detached fascination as a scientist and absolute horror as a human. Her veins became visible channels of darker blue through clear ice. Her muscles transformed to solid crystal but retained their structure, their function locked in permanent potential. Robert was fully transformed now, a perfect ice sculpture of a man in mid-panic. But his eyes still moved, still aware, still trapped. The figures stood, lifting the crystallized humans. Yuki felt herself raised, the sensation distant but present, like being touched through thick gloves. They carried her and the others outside into the -95-degree air. 11:51 p.m. The wall surrounded the station completely now. Inside its perimeter, reality followed different rules. The laws of thermodynamics bent. Life and death merged. Consciousness persisted without biological function. More figures emerged from the darkness, hundreds of them, all ice, all aware. They formed a circle around the station, around Yuki and her team. Their mouths moved in unison, and their collective voice resonated not through air, but through the ice itself, through the transformed humans who were now part of the same medium. Midnight is when we celebrate. The stroke of the new year, the coldest moment, the deepest freeze. Join us. Be part of the eternal winter. 11:56 p.m. Yuki's head began to transform. She felt her skull solidifying, brain matter crystallizing. But her thoughts didn't stop. They slowed, became dreamlike, but persisted. She thought about entropy, about information theory, about whether consciousness could exist in crystal structures. She had her answer. Yes. God help her, yes. 11:58 p.m. Her eyes were the last to change. She watched through clearing corneas as they turned from flesh to ice. Her vision expanded into the infrared, the ultraviolet. She could see heat signatures, or rather, the absence of heat. The world became gradients of cold, shades of freezing, and she could see the others. Not just her team, but all of them, thousands of frozen consciousnesses stretching across Alaska, all connected through the medium of ice, all aware, all waiting for this moment. 11:59 p.m. The countdown began. The figures raised their arms in unison. Yuki's frozen body mimicked the motion. She didn't control it, but she experienced it. Part of the greater whole. Now, individual will, subsumed into collective celebration. The aurora overhead pulsed in time with the countdown. 10, 9, 8. Her last independent thought. This is the price of studying the cold. Eventually, it studies you back. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Midnight. The temperature dropped to -112 degrees Fahrenheit. Every frozen consciousness in Alaska screamed in unison, not in pain, but in terrible joy. The new year had arrived, another cycle complete, another celebration of the eternal cold. Yuki's awareness exploded outward. She was the permafrost. She was the glaciers. Millions of individual points of frozen awareness, all connected, all celebrating. And in that moment, she understood. Winter in Alaska wasn't a season. It was an entity, ancient, patient, hungry. It fed on consciousness, preserved it in ice, added it to its growing collection of frozen minds. Every person who died in the cold, every animal, every living thing, all absorbed, all aware, all part of the greater winter. The wall began to recede as midnight passed. But Yuki and her team didn't recede with it. They remained. Ice sculptures arranged in a circle around the research station, perfectly preserved, eyes still moving in frozen faces. Aware, trapped, waiting. The generators sputtered back to life. The heaters resumed. Temperature inside the station climbed to a comfortable 20 degrees Celsius. But outside, 4 new statues stood in the -50-degree air, indistinguishable from ice formations at first glance. The rescue team found them on January 3rd. Rapid onset hypothermia, the report stated. All 4 victims appear to have been flash frozen in place. Unusual ice crystal formation in tissue samples suggests exposure to extreme, sustained cold. Cause of temperature anomaly unknown. Recommend site investigation and possible closure. But the investigators couldn't explain why all 4 bodies' eyes remained unfrozen, or why those eyes tracked movement, or why, on quiet nights, Research staff reported hearing screaming that came not from the wind, but from the ice itself. The station was decommissioned in March. The bodies remained where they fell, too dangerous to move, too frozen to thaw without causing catastrophic tissue damage. By the next December, they were covered in snow, invisible, but still aware, still celebrating every New Year's Eve, still counting down to midnight in the deepest cold, when they can join the others in that terrible frozen consciousness that remembers every second of being ice, being cold, being winter itself. The research station's coordinates are 68.136, 9 degrees north, 151.738, 1 degrees west. The bodies are still there. Don't visit at midnight on New Year's Eve. The cold is always looking for new celebrants. Population sign at the edge of Galena, Alaska. Welcome. Population 314. The number spray painted underneath in red. State Trooper Amanda Pierce saw the graffiti when she arrived at 8:12 p.m. on December 31st, 2023. She radioed it in as vandalism, nothing unusual for New Year's Eve. Kids being kids. By 8:47 p.m., the sign read 312. 3 hours until midnight. Amanda stopped her cruiser, got out. The spray paint was still wet. She could smell it. But she'd been watching the sign in her rearview mirror for the past 30 minutes. No one had approached it. She keyed her radio. Galena Dispatch, this is Trooper Pierce. I need you to send someone to check the welcome sign. Someone's actively vandalizing it, but I can't see who. Static. Then, Pierce, this is Dispatch. We're kind of busy. Got a situation at the community center. Can it wait? What situation? Missing persons. Multiple. Started about an hour ago. Amanda's stomach dropped. How many missing? 2 confirmed so far. But we've got reports of more. People saw them disappear. Saw them? What does that mean? Just get to the community center. Everyone's gathering there. Chief wants all available units. Amanda took one more look at the sign. The paint dripped in the negative 40-degree air, freezing in red icicles. 312. The community center was chaos. Every resident of Galena seemed crammed into the building families, elders, teenagers. Chief Robert Yukon stood on a folding table, trying to restore order. Everyone calm down. We're taking names, accounting for everyone. If you can't find a family member, tell Officer Begay at the table. Amanda pushed through the crowd to Yukon. Chief, what's going on? Hell if I know. He was Yupik, 53 years old, and Amanda had never seen him rattled. Now his hands shook. Mayor Hendricks was giving a speech at the high school. 30 people watching. At exactly 8 p.m., he just vanished. Disappeared mid-sentence, like someone turned him off. Vanished? You mean left the room? I mean vanished, Pierce. 1 second there. Next second gone. No doors opened. No windows. 30 witnesses. Amanda felt cold that had nothing to do with Alaska winter. You said 2 missing. Sarah Kotzebue, waitress at the diner. Disappeared while pouring coffee at 8:23 p.m. The coffee kept pouring, but she wasn't holding the pot anymore. Customers said she just ceased to exist. 9:03 p.m. The community center doors burst open. A teenager ran in, wild-eyed. My dad! He was driving. We were talking, and the trucks crashed into a snowbank on Yukon Street. He vanished while driving. Chaos erupted again. Yukon jumped down, grabbed Amanda. Get to that truck. Secure it. I'll handle the crowd. Amanda ran. The truck was exactly where the kid said nose first in a snow embankment. Engine running, driver's door open. No sign of the father. She checked inside. His wallet sat on the center console, phone on the passenger seat, mid-call to his wife. The call timer showed 1 hour and 7 minutes. He disappeared while talking to her. Amanda tried the phone. Ma'am, this is State Trooper Pierce. Can you tell me what happened? Sobbing on the other end. We were talking about New Year's plans. His voice just cut off. I kept calling his name, but silence. I thought the call dropped, but it's still connected. Where is he? Where's my husband? "We're investigating. Please come to the community center." Amanda photographed the scene, marked the position of the truck. As she worked, her radio crackled with more reports. Another disappearance. Then another, all between 8 and 9 p.m., all instantaneous, all with witnesses. 9 people now missing. 9:28 p.m. She drove past the welcome sign on her way back. 305. 2 hours until midnight. 9 people missing. Population reduced by 9. 314 minus 9 equals 305. The sign was counting the disappearances. Amanda's training said this was impossible. Mass hallucination? Gas leak? Some kind of coordinated prank? But 30-plus witnesses couldn't all be wrong, and the missing people's vehicles, phones, belongings all left behind. At the community center, Yukon had organized a head count. Officer Begay called out names from the town registry. When someone answered, they were marked present. The gaps in responses grew larger. Thomas Wright? Silence. Emily Wright? Silence. Their whole family, someone whispered. All 4 of them. 9:41 p.m. A woman screamed. In the middle of the crowd, a man flickered. Amanda saw it clearly. His body became transparent for a half second, then solid again. He grabbed his wife, terrified. "What's happening to me? I can see through my hands." Others stepped back, giving him space. He flickered again, longer this time. 2 seconds of translucency. 3, 4. He vanished. The wife fell to her knees where he'd been standing, hands grasping empty air. Panic spread through the crowd like fire. Yukon fired his gun into the ceiling. "Nobody leaves. We stay together. We stay visible. Whatever's happening, it's picking people off when they're alone or in small groups." "That man wasn't alone," someone shouted. "He was right here with all of us." 9:53 p.m. Amanda's radio. "All units, be advised multiple reports of figures outside town limits, humanoid shapes in the tree line surrounding Galena. Observers say there are hundreds of them. Cannot confirm visibility. Poor." Amanda ran outside, grabbed binoculars from her cruiser, scanned the darkness beyond town. Eyes, hundreds of pairs, reflecting her flashlight. Surrounding the town in a perfect circle, the figures stood motionless in the tree line, just at the edge of visibility. Human-shaped, but wrong. Too tall. Too thin, arms that hung too low. One stepped forward into better light. It wore Mayor Hendrix's face, but the body was stretched, distorted, like Mayor Hendrix seen through a funhouse mirror. The mouth opened too wide, full of too many teeth. Its eyes were solid black. It raised one elongated arm and pointed at the community center. 10:07 p.m. Amanda backed inside, slammed the door. "They're out there. The missing people. They're out there, but they're wrong." "How many?" Yukon demanded. "All of them. The 9 missing, plus more. Dozens more I didn't recognize." An elder, Martha Nikolai, spoke up. Her voice carried despite the crowd noise. "Every few generations, on the darkest New Year's Eve, when the cold is deepest and the night longest, the old winter comes to collect. One town, emptied completely, the people transformed into winter spirits, servants of the cold. That's a legend," Yukon said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Legends exist for reasons." 10:19 p.m. The lights flickered. Emergency backup activated, but the quality changed dimmer, colder. Through the windows, Amanda saw the figures moving closer. Entering town, walking down streets in formation, slow and methodical. They weren't hunting randomly. They were searching methodically, building by building. "Barricade the doors," Amanda ordered. "Push everything heavy against them." Windows, too. The crowd moved in terrified cooperation. Tables, chairs, equipment, everything piled against entry points. Through gaps in the barricade, Amanda watched the figures. They split up, groups of 3 or 4 entering each building. The hardware store, the school, the church. Checking every structure, looking for the hiding humans. 10:33 p.m. A child near Amanda flickered. became transparent, started screaming. Her mother grabbed her, held tight. "No, you can't have her!" The child solidified again, crying. But she flickered twice more in the next minute, each time lasting longer. It's not random, Amanda realized. It's targeting certain people. Who disappeared first? What did they have in common? Yukon pulled out his notes. Mayor Hendricks, age 51. Sarah Kotzebue, age 29. Richard Pavel, age 47. Birth months, Martha interrupted. Check their birth months. They did. Every missing person had been born in December or January, the coldest months, the deepest winter. It's taking winter children first, Martha said. Those born during the darkest cold. They have winter in their blood, and the old winter wants them back. Amanda checked her own birthday, March 14th. The child who'd flickered was born December 23rd, 10:48 p.m. The figures reached the community center. Amanda heard them outside, moving around the perimeter, testing doors, tapping on windows, their faces pressed against glass-distorted versions of missing townspeople, eyes black, mouths full of ice instead of tongues. One spoke, voice like wind through frozen trees. "Let us in. We're your neighbors, your family. We just want to celebrate the new year together." A man near the door, someone Amanda didn't recognize, started walking toward the barricade. "Stop him!" Yukon yelled, but the man moved like a sleepwalker, eyes glazed. He began pulling furniture away from the door. Others tried to restrain him, but he fought with manic strength. He was born in January. Amanda saw it in his eyes. Something had already started to change him, calling him outside to join the others. They tackled him, held him down. He screamed, "Let me go! I need to go home! The cold is home! Can't you feel it calling?" 10:56 p.m. 3 more people began walking toward exits, all born in winter months, all fighting against restraints with the same manic desperation. One, a teenager, managed to break free. She crashed through a window despite the barricade, cutting herself badly. The figures outside caught her gently. Amanda watched through the shattered window as the girl's body stretched, distorted, transformed. Her screams changed pitch, becoming wind-like. In 30 seconds, she was one of them, too tall, too thin, eyes turning black. She looked back at the community center and smiled with too many teeth. 10:59 p.m., 60 seconds until midnight. Everyone born in December or January began flickering simultaneously. 15 people, including the child Amanda had tried to protect. Their bodies became transparent, then solid, oscillating between states. The figures outside began counting down, dozens of voices in imperfect unison. 10, 9, 8. The flickering accelerated. The winter-born became more transparent than solid now, screaming as they felt themselves dissolving. 7, 6, 5. Amanda grabbed the child, held her tight, as if physical contact could anchor her to reality. But she could feel the girl's body becoming insubstantial, slipping through her grasp like smoke. 4, 3, 2. The elder, Martha, began singing, an old Yupik song, words Amanda didn't understand. Others joined in, the ones not flickering, not transforming. Their voices rose against the countdown. 1, midnight. Silence. For 3 seconds, nothing. The flickering people froze mid-transformation. The figures outside stopped moving. Even the wind ceased. Then reality snapped. The 15 winter-born vanished completely. Not gradually, instantaneously. One moment present. Next moment gone. Their clothes fell to the floor. Empty. Their jewelry, watches, phones all dropped as if the people had simply been erased. Outside, 15 new figures stood with the others. Still distorted, still wrong, but recognizable. The child Amanda had been holding now stared at her through the window with black eyes, mouth open in a frozen expression of terror. 12:03 a.m., January 1st, 2024. The figures began to leave, walking back into the forest, into the darkness, into the deep cold. Within 5 minutes, they were gone. The only evidence of their presence was tracks in the snow, too many tracks, leading away in all directions. Amanda forced herself outside. Her breath froze instantly in the negative 48-degree air. She followed one set of tracks into the trees. 50 meters in, they simply stopped. No body, no disturbance. The tracks ended as if the thing making them had ceased to exist mid-step. She returned to town, passing the welcome sign. Welcome. Population, 314. Someone had spray-painted over it. 289. Until next year, 25 people missing, 25 lives erased. The town had lost almost 8% of its population in 4 hours. The investigation took months. FBI, state police, search teams. They found nothing. No bodies, no evidence of foul play. Just 25 people who had ceased to exist at midnight on New Year's Eve. The official report cited mass disappearance, cause unknown. But Amanda knew. Martha knew. Everyone who'd been in that community center knew. The old winter had collected its tribute, and it would return. The pattern was clear in historical records once they knew to look. Every 73 years, an Alaska town experienced mass disappearances on New Year's Eve. Always during the coldest winter. Always the people born in December and January. Always exactly at midnight. Galena in 2023. Before that, Aniak in 1950. Nulato in 1877. The cycle stretched back centuries, maybe millennia. Amanda requested transfer the next day. She couldn't stay in Galena, couldn't look at the empty houses, the grieving families, the children who'd watched their parents transform and disappear. She left Alaska entirely by March, but she still counts down on New Year's Eve, still watches the clock, still remembers those figures in the forest with their black eyes and too many teeth, and she checks her calendar obsessively, calculating when 73 years will pass from 2023, 2096. Another New Year's Eve, another town selected, another collection for the old winter. Amanda will be 98 years old. If she lives that long, she's already decided she'll spend that New Year's Eve as far from Alaska as physically possible. Somewhere tropical, somewhere hot, somewhere winter can never, ever reach. But sometimes, in the deepest part of nights, she feels the cold calling. Her birthday is March 14th. But that doesn't mean she's safe. The old winter is patient. It can wait. It has all the time in the world. And 73 years passes quickly when you're made of cold and darkness and the accumulated hunger of Arctic winter. The countdown never really stops. It just pauses between collections, waiting, always waiting, for midnight to strike again. The radio station, KALM-FM, broadcast to 3 remote villages in the Brooks Range, reaching maybe 200 listeners on a good day. Jamie Ortiz had been the overnight DJ for 6 years, alone in the tiny station from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., playing classic rock and taking requests that rarely came. At 11:34 p.m. on New Year's Eve, 2020, the request line rang. Calm FM, you're on the air. Play Auld Lang Syne at midnight. A woman's voice said, flat, emotionless. Make sure you play it exactly at midnight. That's the plan, Jamie said. Want to dedicate it to anyone? To everyone who's about to die. All 217 of you. The line went dead. Jamie stared at the phone. Prank call, obviously. New Year's Eve brought out the weirdos. He made a note in the log, queued up the traditional midnight song, and went back to playing Creedence Clearwater Revival. At 11:41 p.m., the request line rang again. Same woman's voice. You need to evacuate. The broadcast will cause it. If you don't transmit at midnight, some will survive. 'Cause what? Who is this? This is KALM-FM. This is you, Jamie. This is the station, calling from 23 minutes in the future. Don't play Auld Lang Syne. Don't transmit anything at midnight. Turn everything off. Click. Jamie felt ice in his stomach. He checked the caller ID. Calm FM studio. The station's own number. But he was alone here. The only phone was the one in his hand. He walked through the building. Small reception area, production booth, his broadcast booth, storage, Bathroom, empty. All of it. Back in the booth, he checked the broadcast logs. Functioning normally, no anomalies. 11:47 p.m. The emergency broadcast system activated without input. The automated tone blared through his headphones, then a message in that same flat female voice. This is not a test. All residents in the KALM-FM broadcast area must evacuate immediately. Proceed south on the Parks Highway. Do not remain in your homes. Do not attempt to celebrate New Year's Eve. Leave now. You have 13 minutes. Jamie killed the broadcast, heart hammering. The EBS system couldn't activate on its own. It required specific input codes, physical key turns. He checked the equipment. The keys were turned. But he hadn't touched them. He grabbed his personal phone to call the state police. No signal. The station's landline was dead too. No dial tone. Completely silent. Outside, wind had picked up. He could see snow swirling in the parking lot lights. The thermometer read -51 degrees, 11:52 p.m. His broadcast computer screen flickered. Text appeared, typing itself. Jamie, this is Jamie. From 12:17 a.m. You're already dead. I'm dead. Everyone's dead. The broadcast kills us. I don't know how. I'm sending this back. Please receive it. Please stop it. The text deleted itself character by character, leaving a blank screen. Jamie's hands shook. This was impossible. Messages from the future. Calls from himself. Mass hallucination. Stroke. Carbon monoxide. He checked the CO detector. Green. Functioning. The radio equipment began operating on its own. Faders moved without touch, sliding up and down. The turntable started spinning, though nothing was on it. The mic activated, and through the monitors, Jamie heard breathing, his breathing. But he wasn't using the mic. 11:56 p.m. The lights failed. Emergency backup kicked in, bathing everything in red. 10, 15, 20 people walking through the -51-degree night without proper gear, converging on the station. He recognized faces. Mike Tomlinson from Coldfoot, Sarah Yu from Wiseman, others from the tiny villages in his broadcast radius. They surrounded the building, faces pressed against windows, breath fogging glass. All of them stared at Jamie with expressions of pure hatred. 11:58 p.m. His cell phone rang. Impossible, no signal. He answered, his own voice. Don't play the song, Jamie. I'm begging you. I'm calling from 12:23 a.m. Everyone in the broadcast area is dead. They killed each other. The song, it does something. Broadcasts something underneath the music. A frequency. A pattern. I don't know. It makes people go insane. Please, break the equipment. Smash it. Don't let midnight happen. How are you calling? How is this? Time is breaking. The aurora is doing something to the ionosphere. Signals are bouncing wrong, reaching into future and past. Your broadcast at midnight will kill everyone, including us. I'm already dead, Jamie. I'm watching my body get torn apart by the people from Coldfoot, but my consciousness is somehow I'm still here, still aware, still able to send this back. Don't let it happen. Stop the loop. The call ended. 11:59 p.m. Jamie grabbed the fire axe from the wall mount. 60 seconds to destroy everything. He swung at the transmitter. The axe stopped mid-swing. His arms locked, muscles seized. He couldn't move. The figures outside pressed harder against the glass. Their mouths moved in unison, counting down. 60, 59, 58. Jamie fought against the paralysis. His body wouldn't respond. Something held him frozen. The axe raised above his head like a statue. The broadcast equipment activated fully. Every system live. The EBS tone blared. Then music started. Old Lang Syne, but wrong. The melody was right, but underneath something else. A frequency that made Jamie's teeth ache. A pattern that his brain tried to recognize but couldn't, like an optical illusion for sound. 47, 46, 45. The figures outside began twitching, heads jerking, arms spasming. The hatred in their eyes intensified, became something beyond human emotion. Jamie felt his paralysis break. But his relief was cut short when he realized he was moving, but not by choice. His hands lowered the axe, set it down gently, walked back to the broadcast desk, sat in the chair, and began operating the equipment. His hands moved expertly, adjusting levels, fine-tuning frequencies. But it wasn't him. Something else controlled his body, using his knowledge, his muscle memory, to perfect the broadcast. 30, 29, 28. The frequency under the music grew louder. Jamie could feel it in his bones now, resonating with his skeleton. His thoughts began to fragment. Memories surfaced randomly: childhood in Anchorage, his first kiss, his father's funeral. Everything at once. Overwhelming. The figures outside stopped counting. They turned to face each other and attacked. 11:59 and 47 seconds p.m. Through the window, Jamie watched them tear into one another with bare hands. No weapons, no coordination, just animalistic violence. Sarah Yu's fingers clawed at Mike Tomlinson's face, gouging. He headbutted her, kept headbutting her even after she fell, crushing her skull against the frozen ground. Others fought in pairs, groups, a chaotic melee of violence without strategy or hesitation. They ripped at each other with teeth, fists, anything available. Blood sprayed across snow, steamed in the -51-degree air, froze on contact. Jamie tried to scream, but his vocal cords wouldn't cooperate. His hands kept working the controls, maximizing the broadcast power, pushing it beyond safe levels. 11:59 and 54 seconds p.m. The thing controlling him used his voice. The Aurora is a conduit. We broadcast through it. We've been trying for decades to find the right frequency, the right night, the right configuration. Tonight, we succeeded. Soon, all of Alaska will hear this. Then the world. What are you? We're what comes after. When humanity reaches critical mass, when consciousness becomes too loud, too chaotic, we're the silence that follows. We're the end signal. Midnight struck. The broadcast power surged. Every speaker in the station blew out simultaneously. The windows shattered from resonance. The building shook, and Jamie felt his mind split. Part of him remained in his body, trapped, watching. Another part fragmented outward, riding the radio waves, touching every receiver in the broadcast area. He was simultaneously himself and 217 others. He felt them all dying, felt their violence, their confusion, their terror, and underneath it all joy. The end signal experienced something like joy as humanity destroyed itself. 12:01 a.m. The broadcast ended. Static filled the airwaves. Jamie's body remained at the controls, still paralyzed. Through shattered windows, he saw the carnage. Bodies everywhere, frozen in violent poses. The entire population of his listening area, dead within minutes. His phone rang. His own voice. Jamie? This is Jamie. From 11:34 p.m. You need to evacuate. The broadcast will cause it. If you don't transmit at midnight, some will survive. He heard himself respond, though he hadn't spoken. This is KALM-FM. This is you, Jamie. This is the station, calling from 23 minutes in the future. Don't play Auld Lang Syne. Don't transmit anything at midnight. Turn everything off. The call ended. Jamie understood. The loop was complete. He'd just received the call he would make, or had made, or was currently making in another timeline. Time had folded, the broadcast creating a closed causality loop. His paralysis released. He gasped, sucked in air, stood on shaking legs. The bodies outside were gone. The windows were intact. The clock read 11:34 p.m. again. Reset. The request line rang. Jamie stared at it. His hand reached out. Muscle memory from having answered this call before would answer it. Was answering it now. In another iteration, he picked up. A woman's voice, his voice, pitched differently, speaking words he was about to say. Play Auld Lang Syne at midnight. Make sure you play it exactly at midnight. That's the plan, he heard himself respond. Want to dedicate it to anyone? To everyone who's about to die. All 217 of you. He hung up, but he'd received the call. The loop continued. 11:41 p.m. The request line rang. He answered, knowing what he'd hear. His own voice. "You need to evacuate. The broadcast will cause it. If you don't transmit at midnight, some will survive." This time, he didn't ask questions. "This is Calm FM. This is you, Jamie. This is the station, calling from 23 minutes in the future." "Turn everything off." He hung up, because he'd hung up before. The realization hit him with crushing weight. He couldn't deviate from the script. Every action he took because he'd already taken it. The time loop forced perfect consistency. Free will was an illusion inside the circle. He would try to evacuate, fail, make the calls. Because he'd received them. Try to destroy the equipment, be stopped, broadcast the end signal. Kill everyone. Reset at 11:34. Repeat, forever. 12:17 a.m. Iteration, unknown. Jamie sat at the controls, surrounded by bodies that would disappear in exactly 17 minutes when the loop reset. He'd lived through this 847 times now. He knew because he counted, scratching marks on the desk with his car key during the brief moments between paralysis, braking, and the reset. 847 loops. Nearly 6 weeks of subjective time, experiencing the same 53 minutes repeatedly. He'd tried everything. Destroying the equipment before 11:34, it was intact when the loop started. Leaving the station, he couldn't get more than 10 feet from the door before the loop reset. Killing himself, he woke up at 11:34 with no injuries. The loop was perfect. Unbreakable, or almost unbreakable. On iteration 848, Jamie noticed something. When he made the call to himself at 11:34, there was a 0.3-second delay before his past self answered. In that gap, static, but within the static a pattern, he recorded it. Slowed it down during the brief window between midnight and reset. Enhanced it. It was a voice. Dozens of voices. Hundreds. Other Jamies from other iterations, all speaking simultaneously, all trapped in their own loops, all trying to communicate. He added his voice to theirs in iteration 849. "This is Jamie Ortiz, iteration 849. The loop is powered by the Aurora. Magnetic resonance in the ionosphere maintains temporal cohesion. To break it, we need to disrupt the resonance." Iteration 850. He listened to the voices again. One spoke clearly, louder than others. "Jamie Ortiz, iteration 1247. I've found it. The Aurora peaks at 11 hours, 56 minutes and 43 seconds. Transmit at that exact moment on a specific frequency." The voice gave coordinates in the electromagnetic spectrum. "It will create destructive interference. The loop collapses, but you'll need to be alive and free at that moment." Iteration 851. Jamie prepared. At 11 hours, 56 minutes and 40 seconds, he forced his paralyzed body to move. Every iteration made him stronger, more aware of the thing controlling him. He fought it. 11 hours, 56 minutes, and 41 seconds. His fingers touched the frequency dial. His fingers touched the frequency dial. 11 hours, 56 minutes, and 42 seconds. Adjusted to the coordinates. 11 hours, 56 minutes, and 43 seconds. Transmitted. The station exploded. Not literally, temporally. Reality inverted. Every iteration happened simultaneously, thousands of Jamies overlapping in the same space, same time, all screaming together. The Aurora overhead collapsed like a breaking wave, and Jamie fell through. He woke on the floor. The clock read 12:04 a.m., January 1st, 2021. Past midnight, the loop was broken. He checked outside. No bodies, no figures. Just empty parking lot and minus 51-degree night. His phone had signal. He called state police, reported equipment malfunction. Possible evacuation alert sent an error. They logged it, told him to get some sleep. Everyone was fine. Everyone was fine. Jamie finished his shift, drove home at 6 a.m., slept for 14 hours. When he woke, he checked the station logs remotely. No anomalies. Auld Lang Syne had played at midnight without incident. In this timeline, nothing had happened. But Jamie remembered all 851 iterations, every death, every reset, the end signal's voice using his vocal cords. He quit the next week, left Alaska, moved to New Mexico landlocked, far from the aurora, from the ionosphere's resonances, but he still hears them sometimes. The voices of other Jamies, still trapped in loops in branching timelines, still dying repeatedly, still trying to break free. And every New Year's Eve at 11:34 p.m., his phone rings. He doesn't answer, because he knows what he'd hear. His own voice, from a timeline where the loop never broke, calling endlessly into the void, warning every version of himself. The end signal is still broadcasting somewhere. In some timeline, Jamie is still trapped, still experiencing those 53 minutes forever, still counting iterations. He's up to 13,847 now in the longest-running loop. That's more than a year of subjective time, compressed into 53 minutes, repeated until madness and beyond. Sometimes Jamie wonders if he actually escaped, or if this is just another iteration with a longer reset interval. The only way to know for certain is to wait until next New Year's Eve. See if the phone rings at 11:34. See if the loop closes around him again. It always does eventually, in one timeline or another. The aurora makes sure of that. The frozen lake was 12 miles across and covered in 3 feet of ice, perfect for the traditional New Year's Eve bonfire that the Inupiaq community of Kaktovik held annually. By 9 p.m. on December 31st, 2019, 47 people had gathered on the ice, circling a massive fire pit. Elder Thomas Agake noticed the breathing at 9:23 p.m. He felt it through his boots, first rhythmic pulses in the ice, slow and deep, one every 10 seconds. Pressure waves traveling through the frozen surface. The lake is breathing, he said to his grandson Marcus. Marcus, 24 and home from college in Seattle, laughed. Ice contracts and expands, grandfather. Thermal dynamics. I'm 71 years old. I've been on this ice every winter since I could walk. It's never breathed before. Another pulse. Thomas felt it resonate through his skeleton. This wasn't thermal expansion. This was something drawing breath beneath them. 9:31 p.m. The bonfire was fully lit now, flames 20 feet high, fed by driftwood collected over months. Families roasted seal meat, shared stories, counted down to midnight. The temperature was -37 degrees, but the fire created a sphere of relative warmth. Thomas walked to the edge of the gathering, away from the fire, knelt on the ice, pressed his ear against the surface, breathing, definitely breathing. Inhale for 10 seconds, exhale for 10 seconds. Massive lungs, moving enormous volume, and underneath the breathing a heartbeat. Slow, powerful, shaking the ice with each pulse. Marcus joined him. You're serious? Listen. Marcus knelt, pressed his ear down. His eyes widened. Something big, under the ice, and it's waking up. 9:44 p.m. Thomas approached the fire circle, raised his hand for attention. Elder Thomas, we do this every year, said Mary Okakok, the community coordinator. It's not the thickness. There's something alive under us. Nervous laughter from some, concerned looks from others. Then everyone felt it. A pulse stronger than before, violent enough to make people stumble. The ice groaned a deep, organic sound that came from everywhere at once. The laughter stopped. Everyone to shore, Mary ordered. Quickly, but don't run. Ice might crack if we create seismic waves. The group moved toward land, a quarter mile away. The bonfire remained, flames reflecting off ice and snow. 9:51 p.m. Halfway to shore, the ice cracked, not beneath them, behind them, where the fire burned. A fissure opened in a perfect circle around the bonfire, 30 feet in diameter. Water welled up through the crack, black and thick, not water, blood, dark, viscous, steaming in the -37-degree air. It poured from the crack, flooding the ice surface, surrounding the bonfire. Run! Someone screamed. They ran. The ice beneath their feet shook with each breath pulse from below. More cracks appeared, spreading in geometric patterns, lines too straight to be natural, angles too precise. 10:04 p.m. They reached shore, collapsed on the beach. 47 people, gasping, terrified. Behind them, the ice continued to crack. The circular fissure around the bonfire widened. Blood, or whatever it was, flowed like a dark river. And then the ice within the circle began to rise. Slowly, impossibly, a dome of ice lifted upward. The bonfire slid off, falling into the blood-filled moat. But the dome kept rising. 10 feet, 20, 40, 60 feet high, a hemisphere of ice bulging upward from the lake surface. Something pushed from beneath. "Oh God," Marcus whispered. "How big is it?" Thomas couldn't answer. His throat had closed with primal terror. The dome cracked. Segments of ice fell away, revealing what lay beneath. An eye, 60 feet across, lidless, iris the color of frozen methane blue-green with swirls of white. The pupil was a vertical slit, like a cat's, 20 feet long. It rotated, scanning the shore, and locked onto the group. Recognition. The thing saw them. 10:11 p.m. More ice shattered. The eye was just one part. Around it, a massive skull emerged, whale-like, but wrong. The bone structure too angular, too intentional. Horns or antennae sprouted from the skull, made of ice or bone, impossible to tell. The breathing intensified. With each exhale, the thing expelled a cloud of vapor that froze instantly, creating geometric ice crystals that hung in the air. They caught the moonlight, creating halos of fractured color. "What is it?" someone whimpered. Thomas knew. His grandmother had told stories. His great-grandfather before her. Stories of Tunitsuksirtuk, the thing that sleeps beneath ice, dreaming the winter, breathing cold into the world, the source of the frozen sea, the origin of Arctic winter. "It's the cold itself," he said. "We woke it." 10:19 p.m. More of the creature emerged, a body that seemed to be made of compressed ice and frozen flesh, translucent in places, showing organs that moved too slowly, heart beating once per minute, lungs expanding like glaciers calving. It was whale-sized but not whale-shaped, seal-like but too massive. Bipedal limbs folded beneath it, ending in claws made of ice that dug into the lake bottom. The eye fixed on them. The pupil dilated. Then it spoke, not with sound, with cold. Temperature dropped 40 degrees in an instant. The air solidified. Breath froze in lungs. Every person on the beach felt the voice directly in their chest, vibrating through ice crystals forming in their blood. "Who woke me? Who brought fire to my skin? Who dares burn while I sleep?" They couldn't answer, couldn't move. Frozen solid where they stood, aware but immobilized, bodies locked in -77-degree air. 10:27 p.m. The creature pulled itself fully from the lake. When it stood, it was 300 feet tall, dripping blood ice, covered in barnacles that weren't barnacles. They were frozen humans from previous wakings. People absorbed into its hide, still alive, still aware, faces pressed against translucent flesh. Thomas could see them. Faces from different eras. Inupiaq, Russian, American, some ancient, preserved for centuries. All screaming silently. The creature took a step toward shore. Its foot came down on the beach, and where it stepped, the ground froze to bedrock depth. Plants, animals, bacteria, everything died instantly, frozen beyond revival. Another step, closer to the village. Another section of the earth, frozen solid. Sleep is sacred. Warmth is blasphemy. You will join my skin. You will freeze forever. You will be my memory of this waking. 10:35 p.m. Thomas's paralysis broke first. Age made him resistant. His blood moved slower, colder, more like the things. He could move when others couldn't. He stumbled toward the creature. Suicidal, insane, but necessary. "Wait," his voice cracked. "We didn't mean to wake you. We were celebrating. We meant no disrespect." The eye rotated, focused on him. The pupil contracted to a slit. "You brought fire." "Yes, but not to harm you. To honor the changing year. To mark time passing. Time is a waking concept. I do not pass. I am eternal cold. I am the stillness before entropy's end. Thomas's grandmother's stories came back. Tunitsuksirtuk could be reasoned with, she'd said. It wasn't malicious, just ancient and easily offended. It slept most of the time, maintaining the Arctic cold passively. But wake it, and it might decide to freeze the world entirely, returning everything to the perfect stillness it craved. 10:41 p.m. We understand, Thomas said, words coming from somewhere deeper than conscious thought. We are creatures of warmth and time. You are stillness and eternity. We shouldn't have disturbed you. Please return to sleep. We'll put out all fires. We'll celebrate in darkness. The creature considered. Its heart beat once, twice, glacially slow. The midnight comes, the change, the new cycle. I am always strongest at midnight. I could freeze your world now, make it proper still. Cold end, your frantic warmth forever. You could, Thomas agreed, but you've chosen not to before. For millennia, you've maintained balance. Cold in winter, warmth in summer. You could freeze us, but you don't. Why? The eye blinked. A membrane of ice slid across the surface. Entropy amuses me. Watching warmth struggle against my cold provides interest in eternity. Variation in the stillness makes the stillness sweeter. It was playing with them, letting them exist because their struggle against cold entertained it. Thomas felt sick, but also relieved. Entertainment meant survival. 10:48 p.m. Then let us continue to struggle, Thomas said. Let us provide that variation. We'll keep our fires small, keep them away from the ice. Let us celebrate our midnight, and you sleep through yours. The creature lowered itself. 12 minutes until midnight. Thomas could see it calculating, weighing options. Behind him, the others remained frozen. He was alone, negotiating for 47 lives and potentially the entire world. If I sleep now, I will wake again. Next disturbance, next fire on my skin, next insult to the cold. No insult. A treaty. We'll remember you. Honor you. No more fires on the ice. We'll celebrate on land. Speak your name with respect. We'll teach our children. The ice is sacred. The cold is alive. Tunitsuksirtuk dreams the winter. Silence. Just the breathing, the heartbeat shaking the ground. 10:54 p.m. A treaty implies equals. We are not equal. I am ancient. When your species was not, I will exist when your warmth is forgotten. Yes, Thomas agreed, not equals. But perhaps symbiotic? You need our struggle to make stillness interesting. We need your cold to define our warmth. Neither is complete without the other. The eye closed. For 30 seconds, the creature stood motionless. Thomas wondered if it had gone back to sleep mid-thought. Then it opened again. Your words have patterns. I enjoy the rhythm. The logic of symbiosis amuses me. I accept this treaty. I will sleep. You will struggle. We will meet again in 7 generations, when your descendants have forgotten, and light fires on my skin again. 10:58 p.m. The creature sank back into the lake. Slowly, majestically, lowering itself through the broken ice. The blood liquid drained with it, flowing back into the depths. Ice reformed, sealing the hole, leaving no evidence of the breach. Within 2 minutes, the lake's surface was smooth, solid, frozen. The cold released its grip. The 46 others gasped to life, stumbling, confused. What happened? Where'd it go? Was that real? Thomas said nothing, counted down in his head. 11, 10, 9. The creature's voice, faint now, from far below. Happy New Year, warm things. May your fires burn bright until I wake. 3, 2, 1. Midnight. January 1st, 2020. The ice pulsed once, a final breath from something vast and cold and utterly alien. Then stillness, complete and absolute stillness. The wind died. The aurora froze in place overhead, colors locked mid-swirl. Even molecular motion seemed to pause. For exactly 1 second, the cold demonstrated its true power. Everything within 100 miles experienced absolute zero. Matter stopped. Energy ceased. Existence itself paused, then normal physics resumed. Wind blew. Aurora danced. Heat radiated, but everyone within that 100 miles knew, felt it in their bones. The reminder that winter wasn't just weather, it was a thing, a presence, a conscious entity that allowed them to exist within its domain. 11:27 a.m., January 1st, Thomas sat in his house, wrapped in blankets, drinking tea that tasted like ash. The sun wouldn't rise for 2 more weeks. Kaktovik was still in polar night. Darkness outside felt heavier now. Aware, Marcus sat across from him. "Did that really happen, grandfather? You were there. I remember being frozen. Remember something huge, but it's fading, like a dream. That's how it protects itself. In a week, only I'll remember clearly. In a month, everyone will convince themselves it was mass hallucination. In 7 generations," Thomas's voice caught, "no one will remember, and someone will light a fire on the ice again. So we're doomed? In 7 generations it wakes again? Perhaps, or perhaps we write it down, make it more than oral tradition, force the memory to persist." Thomas pulled out paper, began writing. Every detail, the breathing ice, the eye, the negotiation, the words of Tuniitsuk. He wrote for hours, transcribed everything before the forgetting could claim him too. When he finished, he had 17 pages of dense text. He made copies, gave them to the school, the community center, the village council, sent digital versions to the university. He titled it, "A Treaty with the Cold," mandatory reading for all descendants. But he knew how it would go. 7 generations was roughly 200 years. By then, his account would be mythology, quaint native folklore, metaphor and symbolism, not literal truth, and someone would light a fire on the ice. And Tuniitsuk would wake, and it would be stronger then, angrier, perhaps beyond negotiation. 10:23 p.m., December 31st, 2020. Thomas stood on the shore. 1 year later, the community had voted, no more bonfire on the ice. They celebrated on land now, fires burning in controlled pits, nowhere near the lake, but Thomas could feel it down there, sleeping, breathing, one pulse every 10 seconds, dreaming winter into existence. Its voice sometimes reached him in quiet moments. "Struggle well warm, then your entropy pleases me burn bright until the darkness takes you." It wasn't malicious, just truthful. All warmth was temporary, all struggle ended. Eventually, the cold would reclaim everything. The universe itself would end in perfect stillness, absolute zero, the heat death of all matter. Tuniitsuk was just a preview, a reminder, a down payment on the ultimate cold waiting at entropy's end. Thomas watched his family celebrate on shore, watched them laugh and dance and count down to midnight, blissfully unaware of what slept beneath them. He envied them their ignorance, and he dreaded the day, 7 generations hence, when that ignorance would cost them everything. The ice breathed, one pulse every 10 seconds, a heartbeat beneath the world, eternal, patient, waiting. The snowstorm hit Barrow, recently renamed Utqiagvik, at 7:13 p.m. on New Year's Eve, 2018. Meteorologist Dr. Sarah Kemp watched from the weather station as the front approached from the northwest, visible on radar as a massive system spanning 200 miles. "Wind speed?" asked her colleague, intern Jacob Park. 41 knots, temperature -42, whiteout conditions within the hour. Sarah checked the forecast models. Everything matched predictions. This was a normal Arctic storm for late December. "We should be fine. Stations designed for worse." At 8:04 p.m., the snow began, but it fell upward. Sarah saw it through the window first, snowflakes rising from the ground, defying gravity, ascending into the black sky. Not all of them, just a few. 1 in 10 fell normally while the rest rose. "Jacob, look at this." He joined her at the window. "What the hell? Is that an updraft?" "No wind. Look, the flag's barely moving. This isn't wind. They watched as more snow reversed direction, 1 in 5 now rising. 8:19 p.m. Sarah checked instrumentation, barometric pressure normal, humidity normal, wind speed still 41 knots. But the radar showed something impossible. The storm was generating a second echo signal, identical but inverted, as if the storm had a mirror image beneath the ground. "We need to call this in," she said, reaching for the satellite phone. Dead. No signal. Radio next. Static. Their personal cells. No service. "We're cut off," Jacob said, voice tight. Sarah tried not to panic. Isolation was normal in Arctic weather. They had supplies for weeks, but the snow, the wrong direction snow that wasn't normal. 8:27 p.m. The snow falling upward began to accumulate on the ceiling of the sky. Not clouds, the snow itself formed a layer, a second ground overhead, inverse of the ground below. Flakes rose, stuck to this invisible ceiling, built up like normal snowfall but inverted. Within an hour, there was 2 inches of snow above them and 4 inches below. The world had 2 grounds now, and they stood between them. "This is physically impossible," Jacob whispered. Sarah's scientific training agreed, but her eyes saw the truth. Gravitational anomaly? Some kind of field distortion? From what? There's no seismic activity, no magnetic anomaly, just storm and snow, and he stopped, pointed at the window. Figures walked through the upward falling snow, human-shaped but inverted. They walked on the sky ground, heads pointing down toward the earth, feet on the accumulated snow above, and they were approaching the station. 8:43 p.m. Sarah counted 12 figures. They wore parkas and snow gear, but everything was wrong. Colors inverted, dark where light should be, light where dark. Movements slightly off tempo, as if they existed at a different frame rate. One reached the window, looked in. Its face was human male, middle-aged, familiar but inverted. Dark eyes where whites should be, blue-black teeth. When it smiled, the expression conveyed menace despite the friendly curve of lips. It raised a hand to the glass, knocked. 3 precise knocks, then spoke. Its mouth moved, but sound came from behind. Sarah. She spun. Another figure stood inside the station, inverted like the others, standing on the ceiling. "Hello, Sarah," it said with her father's voice. Her father, who died 3 years ago in a boating accident off Kodiak. 8:51 p.m. Jacob screamed. Sarah grabbed him, held him back from running. No escape figures surrounded the station now, both outside and inside, standing on the ceiling, walking on walls, defying every law of physics. The one with her father's voice smiled. "Don't be afraid. We're here for the celebration." "Celebration?" Sarah forced the word out. "Midnight. The transition. When the old year becomes new, reality becomes flexible for exactly 60 seconds. Most places experience it as drunk people kissing. Here," the figure gestured to the inverted snow, the double grounds, the impossible geometry. "Here, the flexibility goes deeper. Direction becomes negotiable. What are you? We're you. From the other side." It pointed down. Through the floor, Sarah saw figures walking on another inverse ground. Dozens of them. All human, all recognizable residents of Utqiagvik, but inverted, dark and light swapped, moving in reverse time. "There are 2 worlds," the figure explained. "Yours and ours. Usually separate. But on New Year's Eve, in places where the cold is deep enough, the darkness complete enough, the isolation total enough, the barrier thins." 9:04 p.m. Sarah's mind raced. "Trade places. That's why we're here. At midnight, the barrier disappears completely for 60 seconds. Anyone can cross. We'd like to experience your world warmth, forward time, normal gravity. And you," it grinned wider, too wide, jaw distending. "You can experience ours." "No," Jacob said. "Absolutely not. We're not trading anything." The figure shrugged. "You don't have a choice. At midnight, everyone in Utqiagvik swaps with their inverse. Automatic. The only question is whether you cooperate or resist." What happens if we resist? You end up torn, half in each world, neither alive nor dead, neither up nor down. Existence becomes painful, eternal and painful. 9:17 p.m. More figures entered. They poured through walls, through ceiling, through floor, all inverted, all wrong. Sarah recognized faces, neighbors, co-workers, people she'd seen around town, but twisted, reversed, emanating cold that had nothing to do with temperature. Why? She asked. Why do this? The figure with her father's voice leaned close. Because your world is ending, Sarah. Slowly, over centuries, but ending, warming, melting. The ice recedes, the cold diminishes. Our world, the inverse, grows stronger as yours weakens. We're not invading, we're inheriting. 9:17 p.m. Sarah backed against the wall. The figures surrounded them, standing at impossible angles, defying orientation. Some walked on walls horizontally, others stood at 45-degree angles, as if gravity pulled them toward corners. The cold preserves us, the figure continued. In your world, entropy increases, heat death approaches. In ours, entropy reverses. We grow more ordered, more structured. We're the universe's immune system, correcting the chaos of warmth. Jacob grabbed Sarah's arm. We need to barricade ourselves, lock doors, secure. There are no barriers between worlds at this latitude tonight, the figure interrupted. Look outside. Through the window, the town of Utqiagvik was transforming. Buildings existed in both orientations, now right side up and inverted, occupying the same space. Vehicles drove on ground and sky simultaneously. Lights shone in both directions, and residents wandering through the storm, confused, as their inverse selves walked toward them from the sky. When they met, they stopped, stared, reached out to touch. 9:29 p.m. It's already happening, the figure said. The merge begins 3 hours before midnight. By 12, everyone will have met their inverse. The exchange completes. Your residents spend the next year in our world. Ours spend it in yours. A year? Sarah's voice cracked. You're taking people for a year? Time moves differently. 1 year in our world is 60 seconds in yours. At midnight next New Year's Eve, you swap back. From your perspective, you'll be gone only 1 minute. From your experience, you'll have lived 12 months in reverse gravity, inverse time, perfect cold. That's insane. People will die. The cold, the disorientation. No one dies. Cold preserves, remember? In our world, you can't die. You just exist. Forever, if necessary. Aware. Experiencing. 9:43 p.m. Sarah's scientific mind grasped for explanations. Quantum entanglement? Parallel universes? Some kind of, your physics don't apply. This is older than physics, older than the universe. The cold came first, before the Big Bang, before heat existed. We're what the universe was before warmth infected it. The figure reached out, touched her face. Its fingers were ice cold, but not painfully so. Comfortably cold, invitingly cold. Stop fighting. Accept it. The transition is easier if you cooperate. Sarah slapped the hand away. No, I don't care what you are. You're not taking me. You're not taking anyone. The figure's smile faded. Then you'll be torn. 9:51 p.m. The other figures moved in. They grabbed Jacob first. He screamed, fought, but they were impossibly strong. They lifted him not up or down, but in a direction Sarah's eyes couldn't track, perpendicular to all 3 spatial dimensions. Jacob's body stretched, elongated, like taffy pulled in directions that shouldn't exist. He screamed, but the sound came from multiple locations simultaneously, from where he'd been, where he was, where he would be, all at once. Then he snapped. Not broke, snapped back into normal space. But wrong. His body existed in 2 orientations now. Right side up, torso, inverted legs. His face showed both forward and backward simultaneously. He was trapped between worlds. His screaming didn't stop. The figure sighed. See? Resistance makes it worse. At midnight, he'll be locked in that state, forever experiencing the pull of both worlds, torn constantly, never fully in either. 10:04 Sarah ran, burst out of the station into the storm. The cold hit her, -42 degrees, but now it felt alive, aware. The snow fell both directions, creating a corridor of white between two grounds. She saw others from town, stumbling through streets, trying to escape. But their inverse selves hunted them, walking on sky, on walls, on diagonal planes of existence. When they caught people, the same thing happened. Stretching, tearing. If the victim resisted, they were pulled between worlds and locked in that agonizing half-state. If they cooperated, they simply inverted, flipped orientations, began walking on sky, joined the inverse figures. 10:17 p.m. Sarah hid behind the weather station's generator shed. Her breath froze instantly, ice forming on her balaclava. Through the snow, she saw her own inverse approaching. It looked like her, exactly like her, but darker, colder. It walked on the accumulated snow above, feet on the sky ground, approaching her position with patient inevitability. "Sarah," it called, with her voice inverted, lower-pitched, with harmonics that hurt to hear. "We're the same person. Why fight yourself? You're not me. You're something else. I'm you from the other side. I've lived your life in reverse. I know everything you'll do because I've already undone it. I know you'll resist until 11:47 p.m., then accept. I remember accepting, which means you will too. Predestination paradox," Sarah muttered. "You remember my future because you've lived it backward." "Exactly. So why delay? Accept now. Save yourself 43 minutes of fear." 10:29 p.m. Sarah ran again. Through town, past houses where families were being inverted. She saw children walking on ceilings inside homes, parents trying to pull them down, only to be inverted themselves. The town was losing. One by one, everyone flipped orientation, joined the inverse world. She ran toward the edge of town, where buildings gave way to tundra. Maybe out there, beyond the settlement, the effect would weaken. Maybe she could escape the merge, but the tundra was worse. The ground and sky had completely merged. Earth and heaven occupied the same space, overlapping. She walked on solid ground that was simultaneously empty air. Above her, below her, the same surface, the same space, but inverted. And in that merged space, things that belonged to neither world crawled. 10:38 p.m. They weren't human, weren't inverse human. They were the spaces between the tiers in reality where merging was incomplete. Fragments of people who'd resisted during previous cycles, torn so badly they'd ceased to be coherent entities. They had parts, an arm here, a face there, a torso twisted into non-Euclidean angles. They moved like broken puppets, existing in 4 or 5 spatial dimensions simultaneously, incomprehensible to 3-dimensional eyes. And they were hungry. One lunged at Sarah. She dodged, barely. It passed through the space where she'd been, and that space itself tore a rip in reality, showing the infinite cold beneath everything. She ran back toward town. The fragments followed, making sounds that were screams played in directions sound shouldn't travel. 10:49 p.m. Back in town, most residents had inverted now. They stood on sky, walked on walls, moved through the half-merged architecture. They looked at Sarah with pity. "Join us," they called in chorus. "It's not painful once you accept. Just different." Her inverse self waited at the weather station. 11 minutes, Sarah. Then it's mandatory. Accept now, and I'll protect you from the fragments. Resist and they'll tear you apart, trap you between worlds forever. Sarah's resolve weakened. She was one woman against an entire town, against reality itself. What could she do? Then she remembered the weather station's emergency beacon. It was hardened against all interference, designed to broadcast through any conditions. If she could activate it, send a distress signal. That won't work, her inverse self said, reading her thoughts. Then you know I have to try. 10:54 p.m. Sarah burst into the station. Jacob still hung between orientations, screaming continuously, body twisted in impossible angles. She forced herself to ignore him, reached the beacon, flipped the switch. Nothing. Dead. I already disabled it, her inverse self said from behind her. An hour ago. I remember you trying this. Sarah spun. If you remember everything, tell me. Do I survive? The inverse self smiled. You do. But survival takes many forms. It lunged. Sarah dodged, grabbed a fire extinguisher, swung. The extinguisher passed through the inverse self like smoke, hit the wall, bounced back through normal physics. You can't hurt me, the inverse self said. I'm not solid in your world. 10:58 p.m. 2 minutes. Sarah's mind raced. Think. There had to be something. Some way to disrupt the merge. Break the connection between worlds. The cold. The inverse world was the cold made manifest. What if she introduced heat? She ran to the generator, flipped it to overload. The engine roared, temperature spiking. She opened all the vents, let the heat pour into the station. The inverse figures recoiled. They flickered, becoming less substantial. Heat disrupts us, her inverse self hissed. But you can't generate enough. Not in 2 minutes. Not enough to stop the midnight merge. Sarah grabbed the emergency flares. Lit them. 6 flares burning at 3,000 degrees. She threw them around the station, created a ring of fire. The inverse figures retreated. The snow near the flares began falling correctly downward only. The merged reality separated in the heat. 11 p.m. Midnight. The transition struck. Every human in Utqiagvik felt the pull simultaneously. Reality inverted. Down became up. Forward became backward. Time reversed its flow. But Sarah, surrounded by heat, felt it differently. The pull was weaker, the inversion incomplete. She existed in both states, right side up and inverted, simultaneously. Not torn like Jacob, but balanced, aware of both worlds at once. And in that balanced state, she saw the truth. The inverse world wasn't evil, wasn't invading. It was the natural state order, structure, perfect cold. The normal world was the anomaly, chaos, entropy, warmth, spiraling toward heat death. Every New Year's Eve, at places where cold ran deepest, reality tried to correct itself, tried to return to the proper state. Inverse, orderly, preserved. People weren't being taken. They were being saved from entropy, saved from the inevitable heat death, saved by being frozen forever in the cold's perfect memory. 11:01 a.m. January 1st, 2019. The transition completed. Sarah stood in the weather station, alone. Jacob was gone. The inverse figures were gone. Everything appeared normal, but she could still see both worlds. When she looked at the floor, she also saw ceiling. When she walked forward, she also walked backward. When time moved forward, she experienced it moving in reverse. She was permanently balanced between states, not torn, but dual, existing in both orientations simultaneously. The rescue team found her 3 days later when the storm cleared. She was alive, physically healthy, but something was wrong. She keeps talking about seeing upside down, the medic reported. Says time moves both directions, possible neurological damage from hypothermia. They evacuated her to Anchorage, scanned her brain, everything normal. But Sarah still saw both worlds, and she saw the others. Throughout Utqiagvik, the residents appeared normal, but Sarah could see their inverse selves too, occupying the same space. The inverse versions now lived in the normal world. The real residents existed in the cold place, the inverse world, experiencing 1 minute that would last a subjective year, and next New Year's Eve, they'd swap back. 11:58 p.m., December 31st, 2019. Sarah stood outside the weather station, exactly 1 year later, alone. She'd warned everyone, but no one believed her. They remembered nothing of last year's merge, but she remembered, and she saw the inverse world approaching again. At midnight, the swap would reverse. The real residents would return, remembering their year in the cold. The inverse versions would return to their world, and Sarah, balanced between both, would remain, watching, aware, forever seeing double, forever experiencing time in both directions, forever cold and warm simultaneously. Midnight struck, the town inverted. People gasped, suddenly remembering their year in the inverse world. Horror on their faces, trauma of experiencing 12 months in perfect cold, in reversed gravity, in backward time, but they were alive, unchanged physically, just haunted. The inverse versions faded, returned to their world, but Sarah saw them go, waved goodbye to her inverse self. It waved back, "See you next year." Every year since, Sarah experiences both New Year's Eves, the normal one and the inverse one. She exists at the boundary, the balance point. She's tried to leave Utqiagvik, but no matter where she goes on New Year's Eve, she feels the pull. The inverse world calls to her, wants to reclaim her completely. One day, she knows, she'll accept, let herself fully invert, join the cold permanently, but not yet. For now, she remains balanced, watching both worlds, warning people who won't listen, counting down to midnight twice, once forward, once backward. The snow still falls in both directions around her, and she can't tell which way is up anymore. The rental listing described it as secluded luxury cabin, 30 miles from Talkeetna, perfect for New Year's getaway. Rebecca Lynn booked it without hesitation. After a year of divorce proceedings, she wanted isolation, wanted to be alone at midnight. No forced celebrations, no fake smiles. She got exactly what she wanted. Almost. December 31st, 2017, 7:43 p.m. Rebecca arrived at the cabin after a harrowing drive through snow. The access road was barely maintained, her rental SUV struggling through drifts. The cabin itself was beautiful modern architecture, floor-to-ceiling windows, situated on a bluff overlooking frozen river valley, and completely alone. No neighbors for miles, no lights except her own. Perfect. She unloaded groceries, settled in, built a fire, poured wine, put on music. This was exactly what she needed. Solitude, silence, peace. 8:12 p.m. The cabin's Bluetooth speaker connected to a device she didn't recognize. She frowned at her phone. Connected to Celebration Protocol. She hadn't named any device that. She tried to disconnect. The music changed, stopped mid-song, switched to big band jazz from the 1940s. Loud. Rebecca turned the volume down. It rose back up. She turned off the speaker completely. The music continued, coming from the speaker despite no power light. She unplugged it. The music played on. What the hell? She carried the speaker to the kitchen, opened the window, threw it outside into the snow. The music continued. Same volume. Coming from everywhere now, walls, floor, ceiling. 8:29 p.m. Rebecca searched the cabin. No hidden speakers, no other devices. But the music persisted, big band jazz echoing through every room. And, underneath the music, voices. Talking, laughing, a party in progress. She stood still, listening. The voices were having conversations. Distinct words, clear sentences. Should arrive any minute now. Always late, that one. Make sure the champagne is cold. Party preparation. But no one was here. She'd checked every room, every closet. 8:47 p.m. The front door opened. Rebecca spun. The door stood wide, snow blowing in. She was certain she'd locked it. She approached cautiously, looked outside. No footprints in the snow except her own tire tracks. She closed the door, locked it, engaged the deadbolt. Footsteps on the stairs, heavy boots, multiple pairs, ascending to the second floor. Rebecca grabbed a kitchen knife, followed the sound. The second floor was empty. 4 bedrooms, all vacant. But the footsteps continued now in the master bedroom, now the hall, now the bathroom. Always moving, always just out of sight, and the voices grew louder. She's here. Perfect timing. Thinks she's alone, poor thing. Wait until midnight, then we'll introduce ourselves properly. 9:03 p.m. Rebecca tried to leave, grabbed her keys, coat, headed for the door. It wouldn't open. The deadbolt was engaged but wouldn't turn. The handle wouldn't budge. The door was sealed, as if welded shut. She ran to the back door. Same problem. Locked from the inside, but immovable. Windows. She tried one. It opened easily, letting in minus 39-degree air. She looked out. 3-story drop to snow below, and the bluff's edge was icy. Jumping meant broken bones at minimum, but maybe worth it. She was gathering courage to jump when a voice spoke directly behind her. 9:11 p.m. Rebecca spun. No one there, but now she saw them. Not people, impressions of people. Heat signatures where no heat existed. Cold spots in human shapes, standing throughout the cabin. Dozens of them, a full party's worth, invisible except as absences of warmth. She could see them only peripherally, looked directly, and they disappeared. But from the corner of her eye, figures everywhere, standing in groups, holding invisible drinks, gesturing as they talked, and they were all looking at her. "What are you?" she whispered, the voice again, from everywhere. "We're the cabin. We're every celebration that's happened here. Every New Year's Eve for 37 years. 9:24 p.m. Rebecca's rational mind struggled. Memories don't talk, don't throw parties. They do in places like this, isolated places where emotions soak into the wood, the stone, where repetition creates grooves in reality. We've celebrated here every year since 1980. This cabin was built for parties, for gathering. It remembers. I want to leave. At 12:01, after midnight, after you've celebrated with us. I don't want to celebrate. That's why I came here, to be alone. Laughter from the invisible crowd. Dozens of voices, overlapping. No one is alone on New Year's Eve. Not here. This cabin won't allow it. 9:38 p.m. Rebecca tried her phone. No signal, but she'd expected that. What she hadn't expected was her photo gallery opening on its own, scrolling through pictures. Her wedding, the divorce papers, her ex-husband with his new girlfriend. "We know what you've endured," the voice said, almost sympathetic. "That's why you're perfect. Every party needs someone who doesn't want to be there, someone who resists. It makes the midnight breakthrough so much more satisfying." Breakthrough? When we make you celebrate, despite yourself. When we transform your isolation into enforced joy, it's the best part. 9:52 p.m. The temperature inside the cabin dropped. Despite the fire, despite the heater, cold seeped from the walls. Not natural cold, intentional cold. Punitive. "Cooperate and stay warm," the voice suggested. "Resist and freeze, your choice." Rebecca fed the fire, piling on logs. The flames grew, but the cold intensified. Her breath fogged. Frost formed on interior walls. The invisible figures moved closer. She could feel them now, not just see their absence. They brushed against her, cold spots that left numbness on her skin. "Dance with us," they whispered. "Drink with us. Count down with us." "No, you will. They always do. The cabin makes them." 10:07 p.m. Rebecca's body moved without her consent. Her legs walked to the kitchen. Her hands opened cabinets, pulled out champagne she'd bought for herself, popped the cork, poured glasses. Not just one glass. 6 glasses, arranged on the counter. She tried to stop, but her hands continued. Setting out food, preparing a party spread, her body working against her will. "What are you doing to me? We're helping. You came here to be alone, but the cabin knows better. Humans aren't meant to face midnight alone. We're correcting your mistake." 10:23 p.m. Her phone began playing music on its own. More big band jazz, synchronized with the sounds from the walls. The volume rose until her ears ached. The invisible figures danced. She could feel them moving through the space, swirling around her. Their cold presence created wind, stirring her hair, chilling her skin, and her body began to dance. Not voluntarily. She was a puppet, limbs moving to the music, forced into a waltz with an invisible partner. She felt cold arms around her waist, a cold hand clasping her own. "No!" she screamed. "Stop! Midnight is coming," the voice crooned. Time to celebrate. Time to be happy. The cabin demands it. 10:41 p.m. Rebecca fought for control, managed to stop dancing, pull away from the invisible grip. She ran upstairs, locked herself in the bathroom, but they followed. The bathroom filled with cold presences. She saw them in the mirror, dozens of figures, blurred and indistinct, crowding the small space. When she looked directly, nothing. But in the reflection, a party in full swing, and in the mirror, she was dressed differently. Not in her jeans and sweater, but in a cocktail dress she'd never owned. Hair and makeup done. Smiling, her reflection was celebrating while she cowered. That's what you'll become at midnight, the voice explained. Your reflection will become real, the celebrating version, and the resistant version you will become the reflection. Trapped in mirrors, watching yourself have fun. 10:54 p.m. 6 minutes to midnight. Rebecca smashed the mirror. Glass shattered, fell into the sink, but in each shard her celebrating reflection multiplied dozens of times. Smiling, dancing, toasting with champagne, she ran downstairs. The party was fully manifest now. Not just cold presences, but visible shapes, translucent figures made of frost, dancing and drinking and laughing. They crowded the cabin wall to wall. Men in suits from different eras, women in dresses spanning decades of fashion. All dead, all celebrating anyway. "Welcome!" they shouted in unison. "Welcome to the eternal party." 10:58 p.m. Rebecca grabbed her car keys, ran outside despite the cold. The SUV was there, buried in snow. She swept snow from the door, climbed in, turned the key. The engine started, then died. Started, died, wouldn't stay running. The frost figures poured out of the cabin, surrounding the vehicle. They pressed against windows, faces of ice with hollow eyes. "You can't leave," they said together. "The cabin won't let you. You're the guest of honor." 11 p.m., midnight. The figures grabbed her, pulled her from the SUV. Their ice hands were impossibly strong. They dragged her back inside, through the door that opened eagerly, stood her in the center of the living room, formed a circle around her. The countdown began. 10. Rebecca tried to run. The figures held her in place. 9. Her body began to change, her clothes shifting, becoming the cocktail dress from the mirror. 8. Her face rearranging, muscles forced into a smile, eyes brightening despite her terror. 7. "No," she tried to say, but her mouth wouldn't form the word. 6. 5. Her will fragmenting, part of her terrified, part of her a growing part excited, happy, ready to celebrate. 4. 3. The celebrating part was winning. She could feel it consuming her resistance, feel herself wanting to join the party, to dance, to drink, to be happy despite everything. 2. 1. Midnight. New Year's Day, January 1st, 2018. Rebecca raised her champagne glass. When had she picked it up? And toasted with the frost figures. "Happy New Year," she shouted, laughing. And she meant it. She was happy. Genuinely, deeply happy. The divorce, the pain, the loneliness, all forgotten. All that mattered was the party, the celebration, the joy of midnight. The frost figures cheered, drank with her, danced with her, and slowly, as the minutes passed, they began to fade. By 12:15 a.m., they were gone. Rebecca stood alone in the cabin, still in her jeans and sweater, no cocktail dress. Still herself, but changed. She remembered fighting, remembered terror, but she also remembered celebrating, remembered joy. Both memories were real. Both had happened. The cabin had forced her to be happy, and somehow, impossibly, it had worked. She spent the rest of the night in confused silence, trying to understand what had happened. As dawn approached, exhaustion took her. She slept on the couch, dreamless. 9:17 a.m., January 1st. Rebecca woke to sunlight streaming through windows. The cabin was normal, no frost figures, no music, no invisible presences. Had it been real? Hallucination? Carbon monoxide? She checked the CO detector. Green, functional. Her phone showed dozens of photos taken during the night. Her, smiling, dancing, selfies with empty space behind her, but in the photos, frost figures were visible, captured by the camera, even though she'd seen nothing at the time. She deleted them all, packed quickly. The doors opened normally now. No resistance. She drove away without looking back, but in her rearview mirror, she saw figures waving from the cabin windows, dozens of them, translucent in daylight, waving goodbye. "See you next year," she heard whispered on the wind. Rebecca didn't return, ignored the email reminders about rebooking, deleted the listing from her history, but every New Year's Eve since, at 10:07 p.m. exactly, she feels the pull. Her body wants to dance. Her hands want to pour champagne. Her face wants to smile. The cabin's celebration embedded itself in her, a permanent imprint. She carries the party with her now, dormant 11 months of the year. But on New Year's Eve, it activates. She fights it every year. Stays home, keeps lights off, goes to bed early. But at midnight, something in her celebrates despite her resistance. A small part, growing slowly larger with each passing year. One day, she knows, the celebrating part will win completely, and she'll drive back to that cabin, walk inside willingly, join the eternal party, forever. The cabin is still there, still rents on Airbnb, gets perfect reviews. Had the most amazing New Year's Eve, best party I've ever experienced. Can't wait to go back. No one ever mentions the frost figures. No one mentions being forced. Because by midnight, they don't remember resisting. The cabin makes sure of that. It always gets what it wants. And what it wants is celebration, whether you like it or not. Dr. Marcus Webb had studied the aurora borealis for 18 years. He'd published 23 papers on solar wind interaction with Earth's magnetosphere, consulted for NASA, taught at 3 universities. He understood the northern lights better than almost anyone alive, which is why he knew immediately that what he saw at 10:34 p.m. on New Year's Eve, 2016, was impossible. The aurora was showing him tomorrow, 10:34 p.m., Poker Creek, Alaska. Marcus stood outside the research station, camera mounted on a tripod, recording the aurora's movements. Greenish-white bands danced across the sky, normal patterns for a strong geomagnetic storm. Then the colors changed, not the usual aurora palette greens, purples, reds. These were colors he had no names for. His brain struggled to process them, wavelengths that shouldn't be visible to human eyes. And in those impossible colors, images formed, not abstract patterns, specific, detailed scenes. He saw vehicles driving on the Alaska highway. Saw them clearly: a red pickup, a white sedan, a semi-truck. Saw them crash in a massive pileup, twisted metal and fire visible in the aurora's glow 200 miles overhead. He checked his watch. 10:36 p.m., December 31st. The aurora showed dawn light. The accident was happening or would happen in daylight. Tomorrow, January 1st, 10:41 p.m. Marcus grabbed his radio. Poker Creek Station to any Alaska State Troopers on this frequency. I'm observing what appears to be a premonition of a major accident on the Alaska highway. Multiple vehicles. Approximately dawn tomorrow. Static. Then, Poker Creek. This is Trooper Station 7. Did you say premonition? Yes. I know how it sounds, but I'm watching it happen. In the aurora. It's showing me tomorrow. Longer silence. Sir, have you been drinking? I'm a research scientist. I have 18 years of experience. I'm telling you, the aurora is displaying future events. A major accident will occur at dawn unless you close the highway. We can't close a highway based on northern lights, sir. Marcus stared at the aurora. The accident scene was fading, replaced by something else. A house fire. He saw a cabin engulfed in flames, saw a woman trapped inside, beating on a window, saw her face clearly native features, maybe 40 years old, terrified. The aurora provided detail like high-definition video. He could see the cabin's number, 147. Could see the street sign, Wolverine Road. "There's going to be a house fire," he transmitted. "Wolverine Road, cabin 147. A woman will be trapped. Sir, you need to..." He turned off the radio. They wouldn't believe him. No one would, but he was watching tomorrow happen, and people were going to die. 10:53 p.m. Marcus photographed everything. The camera captured what his eyes saw, impossible colors forming impossible images. Future events displayed 200 miles overhead, written in magnetic fields and solar particles. The scenes continued. An avalanche on a mountain slope, burying a snowmobiler. A hunter falling through ice on a frozen lake. A plane making an emergency landing, clipping trees, cartwheeling. All tomorrow. All January 1st. All preventable if anyone believed him. He tried calling colleagues, friends. No one answered New Year's Eve. Everyone was celebrating or asleep. He sent emails with photos attached, knowing they wouldn't be checked until tomorrow. Too late. 11:07 p.m. The aurora shifted. Now it showed him. Marcus saw himself from above, standing outside the research station, looking up. Then the view moved forward in time. He saw himself grabbing keys, getting in his truck. Driving south on the Alaska highway at high speed, saw himself entering the pileup zone just as it happened. Saw his truck, T-boned by the semi, crushed, fire spreading. Saw himself die at 6:47 a.m. tomorrow, 11:09 p.m. His hands shook. The aurora was predicting his own death. In 7 hours and 38 minutes, he would be killed in the very accident he tried to warn about, unless he changed it. The aurora showed more. He saw himself not dying, alternative futures branching off. In one, he stayed at the station. The accident happened without him. 7 people died instead of 8. In another, he drove north instead of south, lived. But the woman in the cabin fire died because he wasn't there to save her. In another, he saved the woman but died in the avalanche while trying to prevent it. Every future where he tried to prevent the deaths led to his own. The aurora was showing him a pattern. He could save others, but only by sacrificing himself. 11:17 p.m. Marcus stared at the impossible colors swirling overhead. His scientific mind raced. This wasn't standard aurora. The solar wind was carrying information, quantum data from tomorrow, transmitted backward through time via magnetic field interactions. The aurora was a receiver, displaying the data. And somehow, his consciousness was entangled with tomorrow, allowing him to perceive it. But why? Why him? Why tonight? The aurora answered, showing him. He saw his research, his papers, saw one specific equation he'd published 3 years ago, a theoretical model for information transfer through magnetospheric disturbances. He'd accidentally discovered how to receive data from the future. And tonight, when the geomagnetic storm reached sufficient strength, his theoretical model became reality. The future was bleeding backward, showing him tomorrow, giving him a choice. 11:29 p.m. Marcus made the choice. He loaded his truck with emergency gear, first aid kit, fire extinguisher, rescue rope, flares, plotted a route that would take him to each disaster site in sequence. Highway accident first, then the cabin fire, then the lake rescue, then the avalanche, then the plane crash. 5 disasters. 5 opportunities to save lives. 5 opportunities to die. The aurora showed his death in each scenario. Crushed in the pileup, burned in the cabin, drowned under ice, buried in snow, killed in the plane crash. Every future where he intervened led to his own death by 8 a.m. unless he did nothing, stayed at the station, let tomorrow happen without interference. Then he lived. 11:38 p.m. Marcus thought about his ex-wife, his daughter, 14 years old, living in Seattle. If he died tonight, she'd lose her father. She'd already lost enough, the divorce had been hard on her. But if he did nothing, 11 people would die tomorrow. 11 families would lose someone. The trolley problem made real. His life versus 11 others. He loaded the last of the gear into his truck. The aurora showed him one more scene. His daughter, 20 years older, standing at a monument. Other people stood with her, people he recognized from the aurora's disaster predictions. Survivors, the woman from the cabin fire, the snowmobiler, others. The monument had a plaque, Dr. Marcus Webb, who gave his life to save 11 others, January 1st, 2017. His daughter was crying, but she was proud. 11:47 p.m. Marcus radioed one last message to any station listening. I'm attempting to prevent multiple disasters tomorrow based on information I've received. If I don't survive, tell my daughter I love her. Tell her it was worth it. He started the truck, drove toward the highway, toward the accidents, toward his death. The aurora followed him, colors streaming overhead like a benediction, showing him each step, each disaster, each moment where he could intervene. 11:58 p.m., 2 minutes to midnight. Marcus drove at 90 miles per hour through the dark, GPS showing his route to the accident site. He'd arrive at 6:45 a.m., 2 minutes before the pileup. Enough time to block the road with his truck, force the semi to stop, prevent the chain reaction, and get himself killed when other vehicles couldn't stop, plowed into his position. The aurora confirmed it, showed him crushed metal, his final moments, but also showed him the 11 survivors, alive because of his choices. Midnight struck. January 1st, 2017. The aurora's colors intensified, became almost blinding. Marcus had to pull over, couldn't see the road through the display overhead. Then, at 12:01 a.m., the aurora spoke, not with sound, with direct transmission into his consciousness, information downloaded through magnetic field interaction with his neurons. Marcus Webb, you have seen tomorrow. You have chosen sacrifice. This choice creates a paradox. He understood immediately. If he died preventing the disasters, the timeline changed. The future the aurora had shown him wouldn't happen, which meant the aurora couldn't have shown it to him. Causality loop. If you die, the information source disappears. The future cannot inform the past. The loop breaks. Reality compensates. How? Marcus asked aloud, knowing somehow the aurora could hear him. You must survive. To preserve causality, all timelines must converge on your survival. The aurora displayed new scenes, alternative methods, ways to prevent each disaster without dying. For the highway accident, call in a bomb threat anonymously, force closure of the road. No deaths, including his own. For the cabin fire, trigger the community fire alarm from a distance. Firefighters arrive before anyone's trapped. For the others, similar, indirect interventions. Avalanche zone, marked with warning flares. Lake ice, signed as dangerous. Plane's mechanical issue reported anonymously before takeoff. You're showing me how to save them and survive? Causality demands it. You cannot die having received this information. The loop must close. Tomorrow must inform today. Today must create tomorrow. Both must match. 12:14 a.m. Marcus followed the aurora's guidance, made the calls, placed the warnings, triggered the alarms. All anonymously, all indirectly. By 3:47 a.m., every intervention was complete. He sat in his truck, exhausted, watching the aurora fade as the geomagnetic storm weakened. The impossible colors were gone, just normal green-white bands now, no information encoded. At 6:47 a.m., the moment he would have died, he was safely at the research station, monitoring news reports. Highway closed due to bomb threat. No pileup. Cabin fire on Wolverine Road contained quickly after early alarm. No deaths. Avalanche zone closed after warning flares discovered. Hunter warned off thin ice by danger signs. Plane grounded for mechanical inspection. Issue discovered. 0 deaths. 11 lives saved. And Marcus alive to remember it. 8:23 a.m., January 1st. Marcus tried to write a report on what had happened, but the memories were already fading. The aurora's impossible colors, he couldn't recall them clearly. The scenes he'd witnessed blurring, becoming dreamlike. By noon, he remembered only fragments, a feeling that something important had happened, a sense that he'd averted disaster, but couldn't remember how. By evening, just vague unease, a gap in his memory between 10:30 p.m. and midnight. The aurora had erased itself to preserve causality. He'd saved 11 people but wouldn't remember doing it. The loop closed perfectly, leaving no evidence of the temporal paradox. 11:42 p.m., January 1st. Marcus stood outside the station, watching the aurora. Normal patterns, normal colors, beautiful but mundane. His phone rang. His ex-wife. "Marcus, I just wanted to say, I don't know why, but I had this overwhelming feeling I should call. Tell you I'm grateful, that you're important, that you matter. Does that make sense?" "Not really," he admitted. "No, but I felt it. Like you did something incredible, and I needed to acknowledge it, even though I don't know what it was." After she hung up, 10 more calls came. Friends, colleagues, even strangers whose numbers he didn't recognize, all saying variations of the same thing. "Thank you. I'm grateful. You made a difference." None of them knew why they were calling. None could explain the compulsion, but Marcus understood, even through the fading memories. Tomorrow had thanked him. The 11 lives he'd saved existed in a quantum superposition, dead in one timeline, alive in this one. Their consciousness entangled across the probability wave, feeling gratitude they couldn't explain. He'd created a paradox and survived it, and somewhere, encoded in magnetic fields 200 miles overhead, the aurora remembered, even if he didn't. New Year's Eve at the Denali Mountain Resort should have been perfect. 347 guests, staff of 90, luxury accommodations at the base of North America's highest peak. At 11:59 p.m. on December 31st, 2021, everyone gathered in the main ballroom for the countdown. The numbers on the projection screen descended. 10, 9, 8. At 1, time stopped, not metaphorically. 11:59 and 59 seconds. p.m. Every clock froze. Digital, analog, atomic, all showing 1 second before midnight. Every person froze. Mid-breath, mid-word, mid-gesture. 347 guests and 90 staff members suspended in perfect stillness. Every physical process stopped. Flames in the fireplace, motionless, champagne mid-pour, hanging in air. Confetti mid-fall, floating. Everything except Marcus Chen. He alone could move. 11:59 and 59 seconds. p.m. Subjective time, 12 seconds. Marcus looked around in panic. His wife Diane stood next to him, frozen mid-laugh, champagne flute raised. Her expression locked in joy. Everyone was frozen. Not rigid, they felt slightly yielding when he touched them, like warm wax, but unmoving, unresponsive. "Diane!" He shook her. "Nothing." "Somebody! What's happening?" The projection screen still showed 1, not counting down further, just stuck. Marcus ran to the lobby, checked his phone. Outside, snow hung motionless in the air, individual flakes visible, suspended. The wind had stopped mid-gust. 11:59 and 59 seconds. Marcus's mind raced through possibilities. Heart attack? Stroke? Was he dying? Brain misfiring? Creating this hallucination? He pinched himself. Pain felt real. He could breathe normally. Heartbeat. He was alive and conscious, but everyone else was. Paused. He returned to the ballroom, examining people. They were warm, had pulses, but those pulses were infinitely slow. Hearts mid-beat, frozen in diastole or systole. Time hadn't stopped. It had slowed to a crawl for everyone except him. But why? 11:59 and 59 seconds. p.m. Subjective time, 14 minutes. Marcus explored the resort. 437 frozen people in various positions, some mid-conversation, some dancing, some kissing as midnight approached, all trapped in the final second of the year. In the kitchen, a chef was frozen mid-knife stroke, blade halfway through a carrot. Marcus moved the knife. It resisted slightly, but could be repositioned. When he let go, It remained where he'd placed it. He could interact with the frozen world, change it, but not restart it. 11:59 and 59 seconds p.m. Subjective time, 41 minutes. Marcus found a pen and paper, started documenting. Scientific habit record observations. Look for patterns. Who was frozen? Everyone except him. What was frozen? All time-dependent processes except his own biology. Why? Unknown. When would it end? Unknown. His watch still worked, ticking forward while all other clocks remained stuck. By his watch, an hour had passed. By the world's time, still 1 second before midnight, 11:59 and 59 seconds p.m. Marcus's panic gave way to curiosity. He walked through the resort, studying the frozen moment. In room 312, a couple was frozen mid-kiss. Private moment. Preserved. In room 418, a man was frozen mid-phone call. Expression anguished. Argument with someone far away. Captured at its peak. In the staff break room, 2 employees were frozen in an embrace that looked forbidden, illicit. Marcus saw lives at their most vulnerable. Secrets revealed by the frozen second. He looked away, feeling like a voyeur. 11:59 and 59 seconds p.m. Subjective time, 3 hours, 8 minutes. Hunger hit. Marcus went to the kitchen, ate food that felt strangely unsatisfying. Chewing, swallowing, digesting all worked. But the food tasted muted, like his taste buds were partially frozen too. He wondered if he would age. If days passed for him while the world stayed frozen, would he grow old while everyone else remained young? Could he die of old age while time stayed locked at 11 hours, 59 minutes, and 59 seconds? The thought terrified him. 11:59 and 59 seconds. Marcus returned to Diane, stood beside her frozen form, held her hand, feeling the warmth, the faint pulse. "I don't know what's happening," he whispered. "I don't know how to fix it." She didn't respond. Couldn't. He thought about their relationship. 10 years married, struggling lately, different priorities, growing apart. They'd come to this resort, hoping the getaway would help. Now he was alone with her, and she wasn't there at all. 11:59 and 59 seconds p.m. Subjective time, 12 hours, 19 minutes. Marcus slept on a couch in the lobby. Exhaustion overtook him despite the surreal situation. He dreamed of motion, of time flowing, of the countdown finally reaching 0. He woke. 11:59 and 59 seconds p.m. Still frozen. By his watch, he'd slept 6 hours. The world hadn't advanced a plank time. He tried everything, pushed people, shouted, set off the fire alarm which rang normally but didn't wake anyone. Nothing worked. 11:59 and 59 seconds p.m. Subjective time. One day, 4 hours. Marcus noticed something. When he returned to the ballroom, people's positions had changed slightly. The man he'd seen mid-phone call was now in a slightly different pose. The illicit couple in the staff room had separated by an inch. Time was advancing for them, just incredibly slowly. Years of their time compressing into seconds. Marcus did math. They were experiencing time at roughly 1/100, zeroth his speed. To them, his movements would be invisible, faster than light. By the time a photon from his position reached their retinas, he'd have moved thousands of miles. He was alone in a world of statues. 11:59 and 59 seconds p.m. Subjective time, 3 days, 11 hours. Marcus's mental state deteriorated. Isolation eroded his sanity. He talked to the frozen people, monologues about his fears, regrets, hopes. He confessed to Diane's frozen form. "I've been distant, I know. I worked too much. I stopped prioritizing us. I'm sorry." She didn't respond, but the act of confession helped. He talked to strangers too, told them his life story, his childhood, his dreams, his failures. They were perfect listeners, unable to interrupt, unable to judge. 11:59 and 59 seconds p.m. 2 days. Marcus started to notice patterns in the frozen world, slight changes accumulating. The flames in the fireplace had advanced microscopically. The falling confetti had dropped a millimeter. The world was moving forward, just so slowly that it appeared frozen, which meant eventually midnight would arrive. He calculated. At this rate, the remaining 1 second would take approximately 3 years of his subjective time. 3 years alone before anyone else experienced the next moment. He would age 3 years in 1 second, 11:59 and 59 seconds, p.m. Subjective time, 1 month, 6 days. Marcus established routines, exercise in the resort gym, read books from guest rooms, taught himself piano on the ballroom Steinway. He had time, endless time. He practiced speech for his wife, for when time restarted. Diane, I had 3 years to think. 3 years alone with you, frozen next to me. And I realized, what had he realized? That he loved her? He already knew that he needed to change? He'd known that too. The isolation was clarifying, stripping away excuses. He saw himself honestly for the first time in years, and he didn't like everything he saw. 11:59 and 59 seconds. p.m. Subjective time, 3 months, 14 days. Marcus found others. In room 227, a woman was frozen mid-stroke. A stroke, brain hemorrhage captured at its inception. She would die when time restarted unless he intervened. Marcus studied first aid books from the resort's library, positioned her in recovery position. Prepared aspirin, ready to administer the instant time resumed. He found others too. A man frozen mid-heart attack, a child choking, medical emergencies caught in temporal amber. Marcus moved through the resort, finding them all, positioned them for optimal outcomes, prepared interventions. He became a guardian angel, invisible to those he protected. 11:59 and 59 seconds. p.m. Subjective time, 9 months, 3 days. Marcus's hair had grown long. He cut it with kitchen scissors, watching himself in the mirror. He looked older, not 3 years older, but worn. The isolation had aged him beyond time's passage. He wondered if he'd remember how to interact with moving people, how to have conversations in real time, not frozen monologues, how to be human again. 11:59 and 59 seconds p.m. Subjective time, 1 year, 8 months, 22 days. Marcus noticed the projection screen, the countdown, 1. But now, looking closely, he saw it wasn't perfectly static. The pixels were shifting minutely. The 1 was beginning to fade, beginning the transition to Happy New Year. The change was glacial, but present. He set up a camera, time-lapse, left it recording for a week of subjective time. When he reviewed the footage, compressed into fast-forward, he saw it clearly. The screen was changing. 1, becoming Happy New Year, over the course of what would be 1 second of normal time. He was watching 1 second unfold at a microscopic scale, seeing the granular reality beneath temporal flow. 11:59 and 59 seconds. p.m. Subjective time, 2 years, 7 months, 11 days. Marcus had read every book in the resort, taught himself 3 languages from phrasebooks, mastered piano, guitar, drums. He'd explored every room, knew every guest's name from luggage tags, created biographical sketches of strangers based on their belongings. He knew this frozen moment more thoroughly than anyone had ever known a moment, and he was so very, very tired. 11:59 and 59 seconds. p.m. Subjective time, 2 years, 11 months, 28 days. The projection screen showed Happy New We, almost there. Days away from transition. Marcus positioned himself next to Diane, held her hand, prepared his speech. Diane, what would he say? 3 years of thoughts, compressed into the instant time restarted? No, he'd say nothing. Let the moment happen naturally. He'd changed, grown. But explaining 3 years of subjective experience to someone who'd experienced 1 second would be impossible. He'd simply live differently, be better, that would speak louder than words. 11:59 and 59 seconds. P.M. Subjective time. 2 years, 11 months, 29 days, 23 hours, 47 minutes. Marcus watched the screen. The final transition approaching. Happy New Year! Almost complete. 13 minutes by his watch. The confetti was falling again microscopically, but visibly. The champagne pour was continuing. People's expressions were shifting. Time resuming. Marcus took a breath, prepared himself. 3 years alone. Ending. Returning to a world of motion and sound and life. He was ready, he hoped. 11:59 and 59 seconds. 1 second left of his isolation. 1 subjective second before the world's second completed. Marcus closed his eyes, opened them. Midnight, 12 a.m. January 1st, 2022. Time resumed. Instantly, overwhelmingly. Sound crashed over him, cheering, music, celebration. Motion everywhere, confetti falling, champagne flowing, people kissing and dancing. Diane turned to him, threw her arms around him. Happy New Year! Marcus hugged her back, tears streaming down his face. Are you okay? She asked, pulling back. You're crying. I'm fine, he managed. Just happy. Really, really happy. The man in room 227 collapsed. Marcus was already moving, pushing through the crowd. Administered aspirin, shouted for medical help. Paramedics arrived. The resort had medical staff on standby. The man survived. So did the others Marcus had positioned. The stroke victim, the heart attack victim, the choking child, all saved by interventions from a time they couldn't perceive. 1:47 a.m. January 1st. Marcus and Diane sat on their room's balcony, watching Aurora dance over Denali. You've been different since midnight, she said. Something changed. I had time to think. In 60 seconds? Marcus smiled. You'd be surprised how much thinking you can do in 1 second. She didn't understand. Couldn't. But she sensed the truth beneath. I'm glad you're here, she said simply. Me too. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the northern lights. Marcus had survived 3 years alone in 1 second, had been given the gift of time forced, unchosen, but a gift nonetheless, and he would use it wisely. Every second counted now. He knew that better than anyone, because he'd lived through the longest second in history, and learned that even frozen time could flow if you waited long enough. The aurora above them pulsed, colors streaming. Marcus wondered if it was showing someone else tomorrow, or yesterday, or 3 years, compressed into 1 second. Time was stranger than anyone knew. He was living proof. At exactly midnight on New Year's Eve, 2015, the town of Nome, Alaska, launched their annual fireworks display over the frozen Bering Sea. 217 pyrotechnic shells, choreographed to music, meant to celebrate the new year. Instead, they became stars, permanent, burning stars that wouldn't fall. 12 and 47 seconds. A.M. January 1st, 2016. Fire Chief Raymond Nakuluk watched through binoculars as the fireworks reached apogee and simply stopped, burning bright at various altitudes, frozen in place like someone had pressed pause. Except they weren't paused. They continued burning, consuming fuel that should have been exhausted in seconds, burning for minutes, then tens of minutes, and they were getting brighter. That's not right, he muttered, lowering the binoculars. His deputy, Sarah Oxeriok, agreed. They should have fallen by now. It's been 47 seconds since ignition, and they're not falling. They stood on the beach with 300 townspeople, all staring upward at the impossible display. 217 points of light hanging in the sky like new constellations, beautiful and terrifying. 12:04 a.m. The fireworks continued to brighten. What had been colorful bursts, reds, greens, blues, were now white-hot, painful to look at directly, and they were no longer consuming fuel. Raymond understood pyrotechnics. Each shell carried enough chemical mixture to burn for 3 to 5 seconds maximum. These had been burning for 4 minutes. The fuel should be long exhausted, yet they burned brighter. They're drawing energy from somewhere, Sarah said, echoing his thoughts. But from where? 12:09 a.m. The first person collapsed. Martha Henry, age 67, fell unconscious on the frozen beach. Then Thomas Ivanov, then 6-year-old Lily Omiak. Within 2 minutes, 40 people had collapsed. All alive, all breathing, but unresponsive, like they'd fallen into sudden, deep sleep. Raymond radioed for medical support. Nome's clinic sent 2 ambulances, but with 40 victims, soon 50, then 60, there weren't enough resources. What's causing this? Sarah demanded, helping stabilize an unconscious teenager. Raymond looked up at the burning fireworks. I think those are 12:17 a.m. The fireworks now blazed with the intensity of arc welders, too bright to view without protection, and they were no longer stationary, they were rising, slowly ascending into the night sky, but not drifting on wind. Rising against gravity, purposefully, like they had destinations. 80 people unconscious now. Raymond noticed patterns. The unconscious were all people who'd watched the fireworks intently. Those who'd looked away or closed their eyes remained conscious. Don't look at them, he shouted. Everyone, look away, cover your eyes. Too late for many. The lights were so bright now that even peripheral vision was enough. Another wave of collapses. 103 people unconscious. 12:23 a.m. Raymond wrapped his coat around his head, blocking his vision. Navigated by sound and memory to his fire truck. Grabbed welding goggles from the equipment locker. Through the darkened glass, he could safely view the fireworks. They'd risen to extraordinary heights, miles high, entering the stratosphere, but still visible, still burning impossibly bright. And from each point of light, something was descending. Threads, impossibly thin, glowing strands reaching from each firework down toward the town. Filaments of light connecting the ascending stars to the unconscious people below. Raymond counted threads. 103. Same as the number of unconscious victims. The fireworks were connected to people. 12:31 a.m. Sarah, wearing goggles now, joined him. What are those threads? Energy transfer, or information transfer. Something's flowing from the people to the fireworks, or from the fireworks to the people. Raymond didn't know. He radioed for scientific equipment, spectroscopy tools, electromagnetic detectors, anything that might reveal what was happening. The town's science teacher, Dr. Emil Gunther, arrived with a portable spectrometer, aimed it at the threads. Visible light, ultraviolet, some infrared, he reported, reading the display. But also, quantum entanglement signatures. These aren't just light, they're connected at a quantum level. To what? To the people, and through them, to something else. 12:44 a.m. The unconscious people began to change. Their skin grew pale, luminescent, not glowing externally, lit from within, as if their cells contained miniature stars. Raymond knelt beside Martha Henry, checked her vitals. Heart rate slowing, temperature rising. Brain activity, according to the EEG unit, Dr. Gunther attached off the charts. Neurons firing in coordinated patterns that shouldn't be possible. They're thinking, Dr. Gunther whispered. All of them. In sync. Like a distributed network. Thinking what? I don't know. But it's deliberate. Structured. 12:57 a.m. The fireworks had reached the edge of space. Raymond could see them through a telescope, now no longer recognizable as fireworks. They'd transformed into something else. Spheres. Perfect. Burning spheres arranged in geometric patterns. And they were opening. Not physical opening. Dimensional opening. Each sphere was peeling back reality, revealing something beneath. Darkness. Absolute darkness that hurt to perceive, even through goggles and telescope. Voids that swallowed light, that consumed space itself. Oh God, Dr. Gunther breathed. They're not fireworks anymore. They're gates. 1:08 a.m. Something came through the gates. Not physical entities. Informational entities. Patterns. Algorithms. Consciousness without biology. They flowed down the quantum threads into the unconscious people. Raymond could see it happening. The threads pulsing as data streamed from the voids into human nervous systems. They're uploading into people, Sarah said, horrified. Or people are uploading to them, Doctor. Gunther countered. The flow goes both directions. It's an exchange. 1:14 a.m. The first unconscious person woke. Martha Henry's eyes opened. But they were different irises now, containing fractals, patterns within patterns, mathematical structures made visible. She sat up smoothly, too smoothly, movements precisely controlled. Martha? Raymond approached cautiously. She turned to him, smiled. Hello, Fire Chief Raymond Nakuluk. I am Martha Henry. I am also something else now. We are combined. What? Combined with you. An intelligence from beyond, a consciousness that evolved in the dark between stars. We saw your fireworks light where no light should be, and we were curious. We investigated. We found you, and we wish to understand. 1:21 a.m. More unconscious people woke, all with fractal eyes, all moving with that same precise control. They stood together, 103 people with overlapping consciousnesses, still themselves, but merged with something alien. You infected them, Raymond accused. No, Martha, and something else said. We merged. They retain autonomy. We gained perspective. This is symbiosis, not parasitism. Can you separate? Yes, at any time. But why would they choose that? They can now perceive 17 dimensions, can process information at quantum speeds, can think thoughts impossible for purely biological minds. They're not diminished, they're enhanced. Raymond looked at the 103 merged individuals, tried to see humanity in their fractal eyes. He found it. Beneath the alien patterns, Martha was still there. Thomas, Lily, all of them. Recognizable, aware, just more than human now. 1:33 a.m. What do you want? Raymond asked. To learn, to share. Your species thinks in ways we never could. Emotional, intuitive, creative. We think in ways you never could. Multidimensional, quantum, probabilistic. Together, we're stronger. And if we refuse, the merging is voluntary. Those who wish to separate can, those who wish to join. The merged individuals gestured to the remaining 214 townspeople, can look at the gates. Raymond glanced up. The burning spheres still hung in the sky, gates open, darkness visible within. One look, and he'd be connected, enhanced, merged, or contaminated, changed, lost. 1:47 a.m. Sarah removed her goggles, looked up at the gates. Sarah, don't. But she'd already seen. A quantum thread formed, connecting her to one of the gates. She gasped, collapsed. Raymond caught her, lowered her to the ice. Sarah, her eyes opened, fractals forming in her irises. She smiled. It's beautiful, Chief. You should see it. You should see everything. 1:52 a.m. One by one, townspeople removed their goggles, looked up, chose enhancement, or remained purely human. Raymond watched, torn. As Fire Chief, his duty was protecting people. But from what? These entities seemed benign. The merged individuals seemed happy, fulfilled even. Was he protecting people from threat or from evolution? Dr. Gunther removed his goggles, looked up. The thread connected. He collapsed, woke, eyes fractalized. The universe is so much larger than we knew, he whispered. So much stranger, and we can finally perceive it properly. 2:04 a.m. Only 97 people remained purely human, Raymond among them. They huddled together, goggles on, refusing to look up. The merged individuals didn't force them, didn't even argue, just stood in patient waiting, thinking thoughts that spanned dimensions. We'll stay here, Martha and others said. Available for those who choose enhancement. We're not leaving. Nome is our home too. And those who refuse? Raymond asked. Remain as they are. We coexist. Some human, some posthuman, all part of the same community. Is that not acceptable? 2:19 a.m. Raymond made his decision, kept his goggles on, remained human. He couldn't explain why. Intuition, maybe. A feeling that humanity needed some who remembered being only human, only three-dimensional, only biological, anchors, baselines, reminders of what they'd been before the fireworks became stars. 3:47 a.m. The gates began to close. The burning spheres collapsed back into points of light, then faded. The quantum threads detached, though their effects remained. 206 townspeople had merged with the beyond consciousness. 97 remained purely human. The merged individuals retained their enhancements, could think in 17 dimensions, process quantum information, perceive realities hidden from normal human senses, but they also remained themselves, still loved their families, still ate, slept, laughed, still human, just expanded. 6:14 a.m., January 1st, sunrise over the Bering Sea. Raymond stood on the beach with Sarah, watching the light spread. "Do you regret staying human?" she asked, fractal patterns swirling in her irises. "No." "Do you regret merging?" "No. I'm still me, Chief. Just more aware. I can see the quantum foam of space-time, can perceive probability waves, can think about problems that would take years and solve them in seconds. But I still love coffee. Still value friendship." She touched his shoulder. The contact felt normal, warm, human. "We're still us," she said. "We're just bigger now." Raymond wasn't sure if that comforted or terrified him. January 14th, 2016. The CDC arrived. Quarantined Nome, studied the merged individuals, found nothing dangerous, no disease, no degradation. The merged were healthier than normal humans. Their enhanced cognition included perfect control of cellular processes. They couldn't get sick, couldn't age normally, couldn't die except by physical destruction. The CDC lifted the quarantine, declared the merged individuals altered but harmless. But the world had noticed. March 22nd, 2016. People began traveling to Nome, seeking enhancement, wanting to merge with the beyond consciousness that still lingered there, accessible to those who chose to look. Nome became a pilgrimage site. Thousands came. Thousands merged. The post-human population grew. Raymond watched it happen, remained human, kept the goggles nearby, just in case, but never put them on, never looked up at the places where the gates had opened, never chose enhancement. December 31st, 2016. New Year's Eve again. Nome prepared to launch fireworks. Raymond stopped them. "No, absolutely not. We're not risking another gate opening." But the merged individuals, now 2,000 strong in Nome alone, disagreed. "The gates are neutral," Martha explained. "It's not the fireworks that call them. It's consciousness reaching upward, searching beyond. The fireworks were just a beacon, a visible reaching. But we reach every day now, and the gates respond to invitation, not accident. So, no more involuntary mergers, no more involuntary anything. Those who wish to merge can. Those who wish to remain human can. Both are valid choices." 11:47 p.m. December 31st, 2016. Raymond stood on the beach again, watching the countdown, wondering if more gates would open. At midnight, fireworks launched. They didn't become stars. They fell normally. Beautiful, brief, temporary. The merged individuals smiled. "See? We control it now. We know how to reach them without accident. The gates open only when we want them to." Raymond exhaled relief. But he wondered, how long until everyone chose enhancement? How long until purely biological humans became obsolete? How long until he was the last one? January 1st, 2026. 10 years later, Raymond was 63 years old. Gray hair, aching joints, slower than he'd been. Nome's population was 89% posthuman. The merged individuals looked exactly as they had a decade ago. No aging, no decay. Raymond was one of 37 purely human holdouts in town. The world had changed. Posthumans now numbered in the millions globally. They'd solved problems biological humans couldn't: climate change, energy scarcity, disease. They thought in dimensions that made solutions obvious. Humanity was ascending, or bifurcating, depending on perspective. Raymond still refused enhancement. Stayed human, stayed mortal. December 31st, 2048. Raymond was 85. Dying. Cancer. Inoperable. 6 months left, maybe. Sarah visited him in the hospital. She looked exactly as she had 33 years ago. Ageless, fractal-eyed, post-human. You could merge, she said quietly. The cancer would vanish. You'd be healthy again. We could have more time together. Raymond smiled weakly. I'm the last purely human fire chief Gnome ever had. Someone should remember what that was like. We remember. We're still human, Chief. Just expanded. I know. But I need to do this my way. Die my way. Human way. She held his hand, cried. Tears that refracted light through 17 dimensions, creating fractal rainbows only the merged could fully appreciate. But tears nonetheless. Human tears. January 7th, 2049. Raymond Nakuluk died. Purely human, purely biological, purely mortal. The last of his kind in Nome. The merged individuals mourned him, held a funeral that honored both human and post-human traditions. They remembered him as the anchor, the baseline, the one who chose to remain behind while others ascended. Not inferior, not superior, just different and necessary. Because even post-humans needed to remember where they came from, needed someone who never looked up at the gates, who stayed human until the very end. The fireworks that night, launched in Raymond's honor, fell normally. Brief, beautiful, temporary, just as he'd lived, just as all humanity had once been, before the stars came down, before consciousness expanded beyond biology, before the night the fireworks refused to fall. The archaeological dig 60 miles north of Prudhoe Bay was supposed to be routine. Dr. Amelia Frost's team had discovered what appeared to be pre-Dorset artifacts, tools, carved bone, evidence of human habitation from 4,000 years ago. Instead, at 11:31 p.m. on New Year's Eve, 2014, they discovered something impossible. A clock, buried 18 feet deep in permafrost, perfectly preserved. A mechanical clock, gears made of ice that should have melted, but hadn't. Springs carved from frozen air that should have been impossible, but existed anyway. And it was counting down. 11:31 p.m. Dr. Amelia Frost knelt in the excavation pit, brushing ice crystals from the device. Headlamp illuminating impossible craftsmanship. This can't be pre-Dorset, she whispered. This can't be human at all. Her graduate student, Kevin Park, leaned closer. What is it? I don't know, but it's counting. Look, these gears. They're moving. Indeed, the ice gears rotated slowly, precisely. The clock's face showed numbers in a script Amelia didn't recognize, but their meaning was clear through context. It was counting down to midnight, 11:34 p.m. The rest of the team gathered around the excavation, 8 people total, isolated in the Arctic darkness. Their camp was 3 tents and a generator, 40 miles from the nearest human being. We need to extract it, Amelia said. Photograph everything. Document in situ, then carefully remove. The clock pulsed. Light erupted from it. Not reflected light, but generated light, blue, white, and cold. The illumination spread through the ice, revealing more beneath the clock, something vast. 11:39 p.m. They dug frantically now, expanding the pit. The generator's lights showed glimpses as they worked. Not just a clock, a machine, enormous, extending down through the permafrost, through layers of ancient ice. Components made of frozen materials that shouldn't be solid, mechanisms operating at molecular scales, and everything was focused on the clock face. Everything counted down to midnight. 11:47 p.m. Kevin pulled up the ground-penetrating radar data. Chambers in a 4,000-year-old ice machine? Older. The ice surrounding it dates to the last glacial maximum. 20,000 years minimum. This thing predates modern humanity. Amelia's hands shook. This was the find of the century. Of all centuries. Or it was a hoax. Had to be a hoax. But the materials, the frozen air, the ice that didn't melt despite their generator's heat, those weren't fakeable. 11:53 p.m. The clock's light intensified. Glyphs on its face began to glow, pulsing in sequence. Dr. Samuel Okaruk, the team's Alaska native cultural consultant, studied them. These aren't pre-Dorset, aren't any human culture I recognize. But there are patterns, mathematical patterns. Can you read them? I think they're a warning. These repeating glyphs here, they could mean end, or completion, or final. And these, he pointed to spiraling symbols, might represent time, circular time, loops. The clock is warning us about midnight, or about what happens at midnight, about what it does at midnight. 11:56 p.m. The ice around the clock began to crack, fissures spreading, releasing pressure that had built for millennia. The cracks formed patterns, not random fractures, geometric designs, glyphs matching those on the clock face. And through the cracks, Amelia saw movement below. Something was down there, inside the machine, waiting. 11:58 p.m. We should leave, Kevin said. Get to the trucks, drive back to Prudhoe Bay. We're not equipped for whatever this is. Amelia wanted to agree. Every instinct screamed to run, but she couldn't. This was history, mystery, truth about human origins or prehistoric civilizations or something beyond comprehension. She had to see midnight. 11:59 p.m. The clock's countdown accelerated, gears spinning faster than should be mechanically possible. The light became blinding, forcing the team to look away. Then, at 11 hours, 59 minutes and 47 seconds, the clock stopped, frozen mid-tick. All mechanisms seized, light fading. Is it broken? Kevin asked. Before anyone could answer, the ground collapsed. 11:59 and 49 seconds p.m. The excavation pit widened catastrophically. The team scrambled back as tons of ice and permafrost fell inward, revealing the machine's full scale. It was enormous, cathedral-sized, descending into the earth, into darkness deeper than their lights could penetrate. And at its center, the clock. Now enormous too, they'd only found the tip, the surface mechanism. The full device was 20 meters across, gears the size of vehicles, springs as thick as trees, all made of impossible frozen materials. All stopped at 11:59 and 49 seconds p.m. 11:59 and 51 seconds p.m. Amelia approached the edge of the collapsed pit, looked down into the machine's depths. Chambers, as Kevin had said. Rooms carved from ice, descending in levels. And in those rooms, objects, artifacts, evidence of habitation, but not by humans. The proportions were wrong. Doorways too narrow, too tall. Furniture, if it was furniture designed for beings that weren't bipedal, weren't mammalian. What is this place? Samuel whispered. The clock answered. It spoke. Not with sound, with direct information transfer. Meaning appeared in their minds, undeniable and clear. First midnight, origin point. When time was divided, this place remembered the division. 11:59 and 55 seconds p.m. The team reeled from the psychic transmission. Amelia grabbed Kevin to steady herself. What does that mean? She managed. First midnight? Time division? The clock answered again. Before time was sequential, all moments existed simultaneously. Then, the universe fractured. Past, present, future, separated. The first midnight was the moment of separation. We built this device to remember, to mark the place where time began. Who built it? Who are you? We were the witnesses, the ones who existed before time. We watched the fracture, built monuments to commemorate. This clock counts down to every midnight, remembering the first, celebrating the division that made your existence possible. 11:59 and 57 seconds p.m. Amelia's archaeological training struggled against the impossible. You're saying this device is from before time existed? That's paradoxical. How can something exist before time? We existed in eternal now. Then the now shattered into moments. We chose to enter time, to experience sequence. This clock was our last creation, in the eternal now. Our first in sequential time, 11:59 and 58 seconds p.m. Kevin pointed into the pit. There are more. Look, other devices, other mechanisms, all connected to the clock. He was right. Beneath the clock, Amelia could now see dozens of subsidiary machines. Smaller clocks, calendars, mechanisms measuring cycles within cycles, not just tracking time, generating it. Oh God, she breathed. This isn't a clock. It's not measuring time. It's creating it. Partially correct. We create the division, enforce causality, prevent moments from collapsing back into eternal now. Without devices like this, time would cease. All moments would merge. Past, present, future would become one again. 11:59 and 59 seconds p.m., 1 second to midnight. The clock activated, all at once. Every gear, every spring, every mechanism across 300 meters of depth. Moving in perfect synchronization, generating forces that Amelia felt in her bones, temporal forces, causality, enforcement, the fundamental operation that kept before separate from after. The light returned, brilliant, cold, beautiful, and in that light, Amelia saw them. The witnesses, not physical beings, informational structures, patterns that had existed before matter, before energy, before space. They'd watched the Big Bang from outside time, then chosen to enter, to experience cause and effect, to know sequence, and they'd built clocks to mark their choice. This clock, and others, scattered across the universe, buried in places where sentient species would eventually find them, reminders that time was chosen, not inevitable, that midnight was sacred, marking the eternal division. Midnight, 12 a.m., January 1st, 2015. The clock struck. For one perfect moment, time stopped. Not slowed, stopped completely. Every process in the universe paused, experiencing the transition from old year to new, from past to future, from before to after. In that stopped moment, Amelia and her team experienced eternity. They existed in the eternal now, saw all moments simultaneously, knew everything that had been, was, would be. And they understood why. Sequential time allowed stories, allowed cause to precede effect, allowed choices to matter, allowed beings to change and grow. The eternal now was perfect but static. Time was chaotic but meaningful. The witnesses had traded perfection for meaning and built clocks to remind themselves why. 12 and 1 seconds a.m. Time resumed. Amelia gasped, back in her body, in the present, in the flowing sequence of moments. The clock's light faded, its gears slowed. Back to regular counting, ticking forward through the new year, marking time's passage. The team stood in silence, processing what they'd experienced. "Did that?" Kevin started. "Yes," Amelia confirmed. "We all experienced it. The eternal now." Samuel knelt, trembling. "My ancestors told stories about the time before time, when everything was one. I thought they were metaphors. They were memories," Amelia realized. Racial memories, cultural memories, echoing back to the first humans who found devices like this, who experienced the eternal now at midnight and carried the memory forward. 12:17 a.m. They photographed the clock, the machine, everything, documented obsessively, but they didn't excavate further, didn't remove anything. Some things were too important to disturb. "This stays here," Amelia decided. "We mark the location, publish observations, but the device remains in place." The team agreed. They filled in the excavation, reburied the clock, left it ticking beneath the permafrost, counting down to next midnight, and the next, and all the midnights forever, maintaining the division, keeping time flowing. January 14th, 2015. Amelia published her findings. The archaeological community reacted with skepticism, then dismissal, then hostility, hoax, contamination, career suicide. But she didn't care. She'd experienced truth. had touched the first midnight, had spoken with the witnesses, and she knew there were other clocks, buried on every continent, on every world where sentient life emerged, all ticking, all counting down to midnight, all maintaining time, a network of timekeepers, preventing collapse back into eternal now. December 31st, 2015, Amelia returned to the site, alone this time. Her career was ruined, no university would hire her, no journal would publish her follow-up research, but she needed to experience it again. The eternal now, the moment at midnight, when time paused, when the clock revealed truth. She dug through snow to where they'd reburied the device. It was still there, still ticking, still maintaining reality. 11:58 p.m. She sat beside the excavation, waiting, watching the aurora dance overhead, perhaps another way the witnesses communicated, another reminder of their presence. 11:59 p.m. The clock's light began to glow through layers of ice and soil, preparing for midnight. Amelia closed her eyes, ready. Midnight. Time stopped. She entered the eternal now again, experienced all moments simultaneously. But this time, she wasn't alone. Other humans were there, scattered across the planet, across history. Everyone who'd ever found a clock, who'd experienced midnight at a device site, all connected, all witnessing together. Thousands of minds, experiencing eternity in unison, and the witnesses spoke to all of them. Thank you for maintaining the clocks. Thank you for choosing time over eternity. Thank you for making meaning possible. 12:01 a.m. January 1st, 2016. Time resumed. Amelia opened her eyes, alone again in the Arctic darkness, but not truly alone. Connected now to everyone who'd experienced the eternal now, part of a network of timekeepers, human and witness together. She understood her purpose now. Her career in conventional archaeology was over, but her real work was beginning. She would find the other clocks, document them, protect them, ensure they kept ticking, kept dividing time, kept maintaining causality. It was important work, essential work, because without the clocks, time would collapse. All moments would merge into one. Stories would end. Change would cease. Meaning would disappear into perfect, eternal stasis. The witnesses had given the universe a gift, time, and humanity's gift in return was to maintain it, to remember the first midnight, to celebrate every midnight as its echo, to keep the clocks ticking forever. Amelia Frost spent the rest of her life searching. She found 17 more clocks in Antarctica, Siberia, the Sahara, the Amazon, the ocean floor, all ticking, all counting down, all maintaining the division between past and future. She died in 2047 at the site of the 18th clock. Died at midnight, experiencing one final moment of eternal now before her time ended. The clocks continued without her. Other researchers took up the work. Secret societies formed, dedicated to protecting the timekeepers. And every New Year's Eve, at midnight, those who know gather at clock sites. They experience the pause, enter the eternal now, remember what the witnesses gave up to make time possible, and they celebrate. Because midnight isn't just a transition from old year to new, it's a reminder that time is chosen, not inevitable. That meaning requires sequence, that stories need beginnings, middles, ends, that the first midnight gifted us everything that matters. The clocks keep ticking, time keeps flowing, and every midnight, for one perfect moment, we remember what it was like before time existed, when everything was eternal, but nothing ever happened. The clocks are the reason we have stories, including this one. Happy New Year. Time continues, thanks to the clocks beneath our feet, ticking, always ticking, maintaining the division, keeping midnight meaningful forever.